Well, good evening. It's great to see everyone here this evening. So how do you guys like the new look in here? I just have to say it's not done yet. It's kind of blank. So we are going to get the pictures back up. It's kind of slow, but it is a different feel. And I like what's been done. We just need to get our pictures back on the walls. Anyway, welcome to our City Council meeting for those present and those online. And, you know, we have a wonderful tradition for those of you that attend all the time. You know that tradition, which is we open in prayer. And Pastor Chris Evanson, I so appreciate him and all that he does in the community. And so thank you for coming and opening us in prayer. But first, thank you for sharing with us your, and I'm going to say it wrong, it's your new community resource center, which is Lifting Lives. Lifting Lives.
Yes.
Thank you. I should have looked at it longer.
That's all right.
So tell us about it and before you open in prayer.
Thank you. Yes. So Lifting Lives Community Resource Center is our new ministry building. Community Resource Center for the community, located at 211 West Iowa. It was the old St. Al's Medical Building right there on Iowa. We have food and clothing available for the community for free. We have a diaper bank. We have health classes, exercise classes, hope to have computer classes in the future. Just a tremendous opportunity for us to serve our community. And so we're really excited about that. We're having our grand opening September 26th. That's a Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. I want to invite all our council members and our city to be there to see what we have to offer and how we can work with our community to bless our community. That's really what we want to do. It's not a matter of, you know, trying to convert people or, you know, hey, come over here and we're gonna ring you in, but we just want to bless our community. And so we're really excited about that opportunity. And Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to share that here at City Council.
Well, that's pretty exciting. So I look forward to it, and we'll get an invitation out to City Council members.
Absolutely.
So let's stand, and thank you for opening us in prayer.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Father in heaven, thank you so much for your love and your goodness to us. Thank you for your providence in each one of our lives. Thank you for safety today, health and well-being. Thank you for bringing us here. Lord, we thank you for our city leadership, our mayor and our council members, those who are here to speak to the topics on the agenda. We pray, Lord, that your Holy Spirit will be here, give wisdom to those who are governing, and as they make decisions, may they make decisions that will be a blessing to our community and a blessing to you as well. Lord, the elections will be coming up and people will be putting in their names soon. We pray that you will lead and guide in that whole process. You tell us in your word that you put leaders in place. You put them in place and you remove them. Lord, we ask your blessing upon this process. We thank you for the great city of Nampa and the blessing it is to be a part of this city. And we ask, Lord, that you will continue to protect our city and be with our public servants, those who are serving this community. And Lord, we just thank you for your love. We look forward to what you will do this evening, and as you continue to bless our community, we will lift you up. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Chris, thank you so much. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here. Okay, let's begin with roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Werner.
Sorry. Can I do it? Here.
Ingula. Here. Reynolds.
Here.
Haverfield.
Here.
All present.
And awake. That's great. Okay, I am not aware of any proposed amendments to the agenda. Are there any proposed amendments that anyone else is aware of? Okay, so seeing none, I would ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as the agenda is presented.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, our consent agenda is before us. And unless there are any comments on that, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty. So the next item on the agenda are proclamations. And so we have two proclamations this evening. And I'm just looking to see if Mari Ramos is here. There you are. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's start, and I'll give this to you in just a second. Our first proclamation is Hispanic Heritage Month, which is wonderful. Whereas each year, Americans observe National Hispanic Heritage Month by celebrating the history, culture, and countless contributions of those whose ancestors are indigenous to North America, as well as those who come from Mexico, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Spain, and nations of Central and South America. And whereas Hispanics have enhanced and shaped our national character with centuries-old traditions that reflect the multi-ethnic and multicultural customs of their communities, while adding their own distinct and dynamic perspectives to the story of our country. And whereas 50 years after the United States first observed what was then National Hispanic Heritage Week, which began under President Lyndon Johnson, Hispanics represent a vibrant and thriving part of our diverse community. And whereas this month's theme is prosperity, power, and progress in America, and it reminds us all of all the ways the Hispanics have enriched and shaped our community for generations. And whereas Hispanics continue to make significant and diverse contributions to the cultural, educational, and economic and political vitality of the city of Nampa. Now, therefore, I, Debbie Kling, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2023 in the city of Nampa as Hispanic Heritage Month. And we encourage all residents to honor the rich diversity of the Hispanic community and celebrate the many ways the Hispanic community contributes to our nation and society. So, Mari, are you going to receive this evening? I'll hand this to you, and then if you'd like to make any comments. Here you go. Do you want a photo? Okay. There we go. Thank you.
You better get out of that.
Thank you so much. As we mark this special month, may it serve as a reminder of the unity and strength and diversity that Nampa brings. Together we can continue to build an inclusive and thriving city for all residents, celebrating our shared heritage and contributions of our Hispanic community, especially our Hispanic-owned businesses. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Council members, for this proclamation and for always making our Hispanic community feel welcome and a part of this community that we all are, right? Let's make Hispanic Heritage Month a time of appreciation, education, and support for all of our Hispanic community, and especially our Hispanic-owned businesses. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mari. And I should say that Mari is the Director of Operations with the Idaho Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So thank you so much for being here this evening. Our next proclamation is to elevate our Everyday Heroes Day. Is Jackie Briggs here? I am not seeing Jackie yet. So I'm going to go ahead and read this proclamation. They have begun this several years ago, but I'll go ahead and read it. Whereas we recognize our law enforcement officers, our firefighters, our EMS, dispatchers, corrections, coroners, chaplains, retired first responders, healthcare workers, clinicians, our military, our veterans, and their families as everyday heroes. Whereas those heroes put themselves in harm's way, protecting and serving our communities without hesitation. And whereas they are called to help, serve, protect, and save lives. And whereas their selfless work can take a great toll on their physical and mental health. Whereas over the past 6 years, we have seen a devastating upturn in the number of suicides among these professions. And whereas Idaho ranks 8th worst in the United States for having the least amount of mental health and wellness resources. Whereas we recognize it is paramount for us as a community to surround our first responders, members of the military, our veterans, and their families with love, respect, and the best resources available for them to maintain their mental health, wellness, and build resiliency. And whereas it has been shown that improving access to good mental health and wellness resources substantially affects their families' well-being, as well as the communities in which they serve. And whereas we honor and pay tribute to those who have been lost in the line of duty or died by suicide, as well as those who continue to keep the spirit of true heroism alive each day by serving as our everyday heroes. Now, therefore, I, Debbie Klings, Mayor of the City of Nampa, proclaim September 11th, 2023 to be Elevate Our Everyday Heroes Day. There is a program going on Friday. I believe it's at 10 Mile Christian Church in Meridian this year. In the past, it's been right here in Nampa, but I just appreciate the focus on our everyday heroes.
Mayor,
And yes,
you might remind everyone of Patriots Day on 9/11,
yes, and
Fire Station number 1.
yes, and the time of that is at 8 o'clock. Thank you so much for mentioning that. You know, we have held a ceremony at Fire Station 1, I think every year since 9/11. The first 9/11 in 2002 would have been the first year that we held it, correct? I think. And so you are all invited. It's a wonderful ceremony to honor those who lost their lives on 9/11. So you would all be invited to join us as we meet there at Fire Station 1. So thank you. With that, I don't believe we have any other recognitions or proclamations. So this is the opportunity for public forum. And this is where a Nampa resident wishing to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item has a 3-minute opportunity to speak. Anything, just quickly, comments that were related to a public hearing would be during the public hearing section. So do we have anyone signed up this evening?
Madam Mayor, we do. We have Ashley Purdue who would like to speak on a non-agenda item.
Okay. Hi, Ashley.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. As I only have 3 minutes, I will be brief. My name's Ashley Purdue. I'm here representing Go-Go Squeeze, which, if you don't know, is the best applesauce in the world. So, and our facility is right here in Nampa. So thank you so much. I want to cover 3 things. First, I want to thank the city for the partnership and support that you have offered without fail to our company, and for helping us grow and providing an environment where we are able to grow in this way. Second, I want to highlight that growth a little bit. Every year since we started in 2014, we have added either production lines or increased our hours, and it's been pretty dramatic. In 2014, we had around 50 employees. This year, we have topped 400. We're at 425. So we've gone from 2 lines to 12 production lines. It's been pretty significant, and if you've driven by recently, we're on Birch, you can see that we've got a really big expansion where we're almost doubling the size of our facility, and we will have space for 8 additional lines. The third thing that I want to mention, and unfortunately it's slightly more negative, is that we've had some difficulties staying in compliance with our wastewater requirements. And as a result, the city will see as an agenda item an approval of a significant non-compliance from Go-Go Squeeze from the past about 6 months ago. I do want to share mainly what our efforts have been in trying to come back into compliance, and just be very candid and say, you know, we apologize and recognize what has gone on, and we have every plan in place to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So just again, being brief, we have invested around $100,000 in 2022 and over $300,000 in 2023 to both purchase capacity and upgrade our facility in order to make sure that we are able to reliably stay in those parameters. And we have future investment planned. We have another $100,000 planned for this year, and then we will devote capital expenditure as we increase our volumes and production lines going forward. So that being said, I just want to thank you again for your time, and I just wanted to mention those things tonight in front of the council and the mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I tell you, we appreciate Matern, Go-Go Squeeze, the partnership with the city, and that you are present and your company chose to invest here. So thank you for working with the city. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone else that has signed up.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that had intended to sign up to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next items on our agenda. And I think we may, before we do agency report, because I don't know that Phil has made it yet. I don't see him. So I know he's on his way. So we will do staff communications, then we'll come back to the agency report. So we're going to start with planning and zoning recommendation. Rodney. Not recommendation, recognition. I'll get it right. And this is pretty special.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I'm really happy to be here today and just let you know about an award that our planning team received from the Western Planners Association, and that's made up of all of the Western states except for California. That's the only one that's not in there. It also includes Alaska. And the award we're receiving, the team is receiving, is the Western Planner 2023 Kenneth G. Wido Award for Planning Team of the Year. And this is for the work that was done on the State Highway 16 specific area plan. And so I just wanted to recognize my team as well as our consultant that helped us with it, JUB, but more particularly call out Brianna Sun and Doug Critchfield, who were the leads on this project. And I am just really proud of my team. I think this is finally a chance to show that we have the best planning team in the world. So, thanks.
Well, Rodney, we agree, and we think we do have the best planning team around. So thank you. I'm excited for you, and that's quite an honor to be recognized at that level for the great work that was done. So congratulations. We're going to step back into our agency and commission reports, and we have a presentation on elections by Idaho Secretary of State Phil McGrain. Thank you, Secretary McGrain, for joining us this evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, for having me. It really is a privilege to be out here, and I apologize for my timeliness. I was fully embracing the Nampa experience. I think everyone can appreciate what that means. So I'm just glad that I actually am here, at least somewhat timely, maybe not quite on time. So thank you guys for having me. Mayor, it really is a privilege to talk with you. There's just a couple of things I thought might be helpful to touch base. I know Commissioner Rodriguez had reached out. He's been in contact with the Canyon County Elections Office, just talking about elections. Obviously, there's an election coming up. I'm assuming a few of you are familiar with that. A lot going into that, and in particular, this is a unique experience for the city of Nampa in that this will be the first election with city districts. So a significant change just in terms of the city council, how the election process works, everything related to that. I mean, fortunately, as a state, we've had one other opportunity to go through this experience with the city of Boise. But I also think it's worth noting the reason you're here and the reason city council districts have arrived is Nampa plays a significant role in this state. You are not a small city here in the state of Idaho. You have a lot of going on. You have a diverse constituency in which you represent. And so with that comes some of this change. And I just want to let you know from our office and the Secretary of State's office, we are working closely with the Canyon County Elections Office and Clerk Yamamoto and his staff just to make sure that everything is in place. Fortunately, in our office, we have a few members of both the Nampa community as well as Canyon County. And so we've been actively working with Brandy and the team over in Canyon County to try and make sure the districts are set up, everything is in place to make sure that runs smoothly. You know, one of the things when I spoke with Mayor Kling in advance was just the opportunity to answer questions about that, but also just to recognize, in addition to this change, elections are certainly a significant topic both in the country, nationally right now, just in terms of the security of our elections, how our elections process works, but also I think in particular here in Canyon County. I think most of you are aware of some of the challenges that have been faced in recent elections regarding whether it's long lines or other issues. And coming on board as Secretary of State, I've taken an active interest in trying to find ways that we can support the counties, but in particular Canyon County, to address some of those challenges, hoping that there will be more opportunities to vote. I think one of the things of note is with this upcoming election is I think it's solidifying as far as I understand. I'm sure Rick or somebody could correct me here, but the opportunity to have early voting in the city of Nampa, I think being the largest city in this community, it's important that you have the opportunity for early voting here in the community. And so I think that's a huge plus. So Mayor, everyone else, thank you for the work that has been there. I think that highlights one of the issues that stands out on my mind is just the need for local government partnerships. I think most of you are aware, my background is having served as the Ada County Clerk and just realizing how important it is that we're all working together. That's not to imply that people aren't, but I can tell you right now, one of the biggest lifts that's needed here is just more and more partnerships with local government entities, specifically as it relates to polling locations. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we see in Canyon County is the availability of spaces to adequately serve as polling locations. That's probably less of a conversation with the city as much as it is the many different school districts that are here in the area. Schools, as well as other public facilities, serve as a vital role in terms of our ability to run elections, and that's particularly true here. One of the unique challenges that Clerk Yamamoto faces, as well as all of the clerks throughout the state and truly throughout the United States, is finding adequate places to vote. As our politics have become more polarizing, it has led to less private facilities being available as polling locations. Similarly, one of the challenges, the expectations for what our polling locations need to be has risen. One thing you may or may not know is that polling places, much like City Hall, are required to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act to ensure that they're accessible to all voters. That's a higher bar than many of our churches, firehouses, or other places are ready to meet. And so it means trying to identify places that already meet ADA accommodations and trying to set them up as polls. And one of the hopes is between some of the work that the city is doing, some of the work that the county is doing, and hopefully just more and more partnerships with the school districts, we can open up more locations for voting. I know that's one of the things that Clerk Yamamoto really is hoping for. For our sake, it's easy for me to come in, from the state and say that, but we're trying to work with the clerk's office and providing more funding and resources to equip those new locations with supplies. I think to put into perspective, we did a little research for you guys. The average polling location in Canyon County houses about 2,200 registered voters. That is the largest in the state. Just to put it in perspective, the state average is about 1,050. So it's almost double. But to ease your sense of pain a little bit, Ada County, which is the number 2 largest in the state, is at about 1,500. So you can still see there's a healthy gap, and that's a lot of why you hear some of the stories that you do is there just aren't the facilities available presently that are needed to house the number of voters. And I can't think of a community that has felt it more is just the growth that we have felt in the state. This area is one of the fastest growing areas, right? And as particularly your surrounding cities, city of Middleton and Star, for example, are just exploding with growth. Well, with all those new people comes new demands. I'm sure that's not something new to any of you. This is just one example of that, is making sure that there are adequate voting locations. And so I'm hopeful, and I encourage each of you in your respective elected roles to encourage some of your other community partners to see, are there ways, just like opening up early voting for the city, but are there ways that we can find more locations so that we can reduce those lines and ensure everyone, not just for the city election coming up in November, but especially we headed into the 2024 cycle. I mean, that's one of the big reasons, I was willing to make the trek out here as I look on the horizon. We've got some really important elections coming up, and so we need to do everything we can to help make sure voting is available. I have a few other things I can touch on real quick, but before I do, is there any questions, whether it's about the city districts or just the polling locations, that I could answer?
Excuse me. I forgot to introduce the guests that are here with you.
I should have done that too.
I forgot. So would you like to?
Sure. I've got, I think there's on both sides of me, but I've got from my team, Here, Nicole Fitzgerald. Nicole's my chief deputy. Join him out here. Yair Carrero he's really the smiling face of our office, and he is probably the most passionate. He's provided the most time and energy in helping the Canyon County team.
And lives here in Nampa?
And lives, yeah.
You live in Caldwell. Okay, that's right.
He wishes he
that's
lived in
right.
Nampa.
Yeah.
And wait, we've got Brandy and Haley. Kylie, sorry. I shouldn't introduce. We've got folks from the Canyon County Elections team. And I know
And
Robin is on
Robin-
the call. Sorry, Robin.
And Robin Snegas, thank you, because Robin and Yaid actually began working with Victor Rodriguez on this topic, which we greatly appreciated, and then it morphed into tonight. And there's so much that we could talk about, but for sake of time, unless there's a quick question, maybe we'll have you quickly give us that next step, and then we'll, the other information.
And I apologize. Just like the mayor mentioned, both teams have expanded since this conversation started. So one of the other things I think noting with this election coming up is there are changes to the voter registration laws here in the state of Idaho. As of July 1st, there are new ID requirements in order to register to vote. At the table at the front, we do have flyers just to highlight some of what the new requirements are. Just to let you know, really what it is creating uniformity in terms of what the requirements to register to vote are. Probably all of you have heard either me or somebody else say on the news, when you head to the polls, bring your photo ID and proof of residence like a utility bill. That's always been the expectation for same-day registration when you register at the polls. But there were different processes depending on the other methods in which you registered in the past. So if you registered by mail, it had a different expectation. Online was a different expectation. One of the things the new law does is create the same uniform expectation for all voters, and specifically saying you need to show who you are by providing ID, and then you need to show that you live at the residence you're registering for. And there's certain documentation that you can provide. I let you know that because questions may arise with the upcoming election, specifically because it's a city election that's going to be one of the first ones in this community. Just to let you know the new requirements. I will say, and I'm biased here, but the easiest way to register to vote is to visit voteidaho.gov and to register online. Our office is working to both vamp that up, but it is the simplest. We actually are tied in with ITD, and we will validate your driver's license information against the information you provide to just make it a seamless online registration process. But wanted you to be aware of those new requirements because they will be in effect for this coming election.
Phil, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mayor. If you already registered, do you need to register again?
Oh, great question. No, you do not. If you're already registered to vote, so all the city, overwhelmingly, everyone doesn't need to do anything. They just need to show up, bring their ID, show it, and they'll be able to vote. So just like all other elections, nothing changes. This really is a change for people who are moving into the area and need to register, or somebody who might move within the area and needs to update their registration. Yep, great question. And also, in case anyone, you can online update your driver's license information. I'm sure ITD would encourage that. So if you do move, you can visit the itd.idaho.gov website and update your driver's license information as well. The final thing I just want to, I know I mentioned at the beginning, just elections and election security. That has been a hot topic around the country, and one of the biggest things is I just want to assure you that we have a great system here in the state of Idaho. We work very closely, both as a state and at the county level, to ensure we have both accurate and secure elections. Back in 2011, the state consolidated all elections under the county clerk's office so that you would have professional election staff, that this is what they do. They're dedicated to the administration of elections. That means things like testing our voting equipment to make sure that it's accurate. So prior to every election and after every election, the equipment is tested to make sure that specific election is accurate. One of the things in Idaho is we vote, all Idahoans vote on a paper ballot. There is the official record is not what the machine says. The official record is that piece of paper that has your votes marked on it. So in the event of an audit by our office or in the event of a recount, for example, it's that official record that the votes are counted against. Also, the equipment, the sensitive equipment that they use to tabulate those votes is never, and I want to emphasize the word never, connected to the internet. One of the easiest ways to prevent hacking or any other possibility is just to cut the cord. And so all of our voting equipment is intentionally maintained using what's referred to affectionately as a sneaker net. Even when on election night, you guys are all clicking refresh 1,000 times to look up the results, it will actually require someone in the Canyon County Elections Office to take the results from the voting system and go to a separate network computer to upload the results to the public. That's a really important part of our feature. I can go into other aspects of it, but just to highlight, we do also have a form just highlighting some of the security steps that the state does. You know, earlier today I was on calls regarding certification of election equipment just to make sure that we are always dotting our I's and crossing our T's. And I think the best proof of that is 2 years ago, the state implemented post-election audits. So that's where after a general or primary election, the state will come in and send independent auditors to come review the results and compare them to what the county posted. And thankfully, all of our audits have proven that our system is working and that the systems are accurate, that when you mark your vote, it is being counted for the candidates that you voted for. The greatest discrepancy, I believe, we've seen was 1 vote in a particular county. And we report all that publicly so that that the public can see and have confidence in our elections. I think that's particularly important. I know, and I won't get into it for the sake of time, Mayor, but if there are any questions about the presidential primary, I'm happy to answer those questions. I mean, right now we are on course for a caucus system here in the state, but I can tell you there are ongoing conversations with the legislature. I just spoke to Speaker Moyle on my way over, took advantage of my time in my car to kind of do a touch base in terms of where we are in the potential of a special legislative session. But to respect all of your time this evening, Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions or to give you back.
Mayor, I do have a quick question. Mail-in ballots, what's the current Idaho criteria for who can mail in and who needs to vote in person or early?
Yeah, great question. Idaho hasn't changed its laws. You have to specifically request a absentee ballot, so we don't mail out ballots automatically to all registered voters like some of our neighboring states do. Instead, you specifically have to mail it, put in a request, whether it's online or mail. And then also in terms of the security features, this always surprises people, but we actually verify both that the person has requested one, for example, but we actually validate the signatures on every single absentee ballot that comes in, and we compare that to the signature either on their registration card or their driver's license to make sure that the person voting is the person who they say they are.
So if someone does request an absentee ballot, though, they are allowed to do that. There's no criteria where the handicap, age, do not drive, anything of that sort, correct? I'm seeing.
Yeah, that's correct. There is no excuse required, no specific reason that someone has to provide. Any voter, whether here in the city of Nampa or outside. You know,
And I know with the long lines and so on, my final question is then, is there any our marketing as far as encouraging that with the long lines? And the other thing, where the COVID is starting to be spoken loudly and again, or what's the state of Idaho doing? Are you planning on encouraging that if those two criteria with the long lines and the COVID aspect comes alive again?
I'll be bold and speak on behalf of Clerk Yamamoto, but I do believe he is encouraging people as a means to avoid any long lines
to do absentee,
to go and request, and that can also be done at voteidaho.gov. Anybody who's interested can request.
Appreciate your time.
Yep.
Thanks.
Mayor?
Yes.
Just one quick question. How important is signature verification? When you intake a voter at the poll, obviously there's that electric thing or you use your finger on it. That is not how I sign my normal autograph. So how important is that signature verification?
Great question. In terms of the signature verification, so we use signature verification specifically for the absentee ballots where you write on the affidavit swearing that information. We do capture the digital signatures on the e-poll books. I will say there's a lot of advantages to the electronic poll books, that signature pad that you referenced, in terms of validating your information. So I'm assuming this has been your experience, is they scan your driver's license, pull up your records, you sign. All of that information is captured. Those signatures aren't actually validated against your driver's information. I will say, though, having personally checked thousands of signatures in my past life, although everyone's signature varies, you would be surprised how consistent your signature is, whether it's on the touchpad or something else. We actually provide, through our office and the Secretary of State's office, training for those people who are doing signature verification to know what to look for.
It sounds like it's important.
It is important.
I just know that when I've tried to do that, there's no way. I mean, it looks like waves on an ocean. It's not my normal signature, so I didn't know how important it was that it matched with my actual signature.
Yeah, it's very important. If you do ever choose to vote by absentee in the affidavit that you sign, it's the most important on that affidavit. It's worth noting too, though, because this is happening right now, for every petition that is circulated, we have a couple of petitions out in circulation right now, every single signature on those petitions throughout the state is checked. So we'll easily check over 100,000 signatures for any given petition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
So, Secretary, I just want to make a note to everyone here and in Nampa, is that your office is presently sending out education information by video or by paper or internet of what to expect this year and next year. So information that's important to our communities is you're taking the firsthand look and you're sending it out. That I do like. And I think that's commendable of you and your office. At the same time, Robin Snegas from Canyon County is doing the same thing. So, you know, educating our community of how to vote, what to do, and how to get around all this is really commendable. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank Robin for stepping up to the plate.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the comments. I will say there's plenty of opportunity to do more. You know, I think one of the biggest things, I know the most common request, I'm sure it happens here at the city, is just where's my voter guide? We are working and trying, you know, I had legislation this past session to try and encourage a statewide voter guide to let people know when they're voting. That's often one, you know, we just had an August election through parts of the state, including parts of Canyon County. Many people aren't necessarily anticipating those elections, so letting people know when they're voting, but also trying to provide, and we're working on a big update of the voteidaho.gov website to say, what are you voting on? So that people, when they head to the polls, a perfect example is the city council districts, you know, there are going to be residents who are surprised, who maybe have voted for some of you in the past and are loyal supporters, and all of a sudden you don't show up on their ballot, right? And so how do we help inform the public of some of these changes and also let them know? City council is a perfect example. Many people, when they head to a city election, may think of the mayor, may not always think of the city council members. As a former county clerk, I can tell you no one was thinking of their county clerk when they headed to the polls. And so anything we can do to help make voters more aware and more informed, our office is trying to work very aggressively. And I know the same is true for the Canyon County team.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to Canyon County Elections for the hard work and for stepping up. Thank you, Robin. Appreciate it. Thank you to the Secretary of State's office, the entire team. I thank you to you. Thank you all for your work. And Secretary McGrain, thank you for your leadership. I have full confidence in where we're going as a state, in the integrity of our elections, and the progress as we move forward. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the great job. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for stepping up to serve in your role. So you're greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much for your time this evening and all of the support from the city.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we move on to the next item, somebody I didn't recognize was Martha Lopez sitting back there. Martha, I just wanted to say thank you for your leadership. Are you chairman of the board of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce? Thank you for all you do. Thank you for being here to celebrate. Do you have any comments? Because I didn't have you come forward. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Okay, so we're running a little bit late, but we're going to work through some things, Council, very quickly tonight if we can. We are going to have Matt Ricks come forward, and he has our Public Works staff communication. Where's Matt? There you are. And then as Matt's coming forward, I asked Amy if she minds if we push off our communications staff report until the next meeting. So we're going to push that to the next meeting since we're running late on time. And then we are going to work through new business. So go ahead, Matt.
Okay, so I'm going to present on the results of the road safety audit that we recently completed with Precision Engineering and LTAC support. This specifically looked at a few signalized intersections and how they're working, so I'll go over some of those. So I may call it an RSA from here on out, but a road safety audit or an RSA is generally getting an outside group, outside of city staff, to come in and have a look at some areas where maybe we want to do some safety improvements. And some of the goals are to identify safety improvements at selected intersections, determine countermeasures to improve those safety issues. And then also with this road safety audit, we're able to look at how we can apply these countermeasures citywide. So where we looked at, there were 6 intersections. So we looked at, these are all the study intersections where they went out and reviewed the safety problems. Midland Boulevard and Lone Star Road, Midland and Orchard, 16th and 3rd, 16th and 2nd, 16th and 3rd, so north and south, but you can see on the map as well being highlighted. And then at 16th and 7th. So like I mentioned before, the results from this can be applied citywide. So they gave us recommendations overall, and then they gave us recommendations at specific intersections. So I'll go over a few of the overall recommendations. Those were to implement leading pedestrian intervals. So what that does is allows the pedestrian to get out in the crosswalk before the vehicles to their left, more or less, get the green indication. Those are usually about 4 seconds of time. It'll get the pedestrian out there and make it more visible to drivers. Suppress flashing yellow arrow when a pedestrian is present. So that flashing yellow arrow, which allows a permissive left turn movement, it does conflict with one of the crosswalks that they're turning across. So one of the recommendations was to suppress that flashing yellow arrow when a pedestrian call is placed. And both of these things, these top 2, we've already been implementing. So we're putting those into effect throughout the city.
Could I ask a quick question on that? Is that done with an eye to suppress the flashing yellow arrow when a pedestrian is present? So it isn't just holding it during the crossing, right, where the pedestrian can cross, that the yellow flashing cannot turn on, but it's actually if a pedestrian is present? Does that mean they have to have pushed a button?
It's if they push the button.
Okay, that's how it works.
Correct.
Okay.
So there are methods to detect pedestrians with cameras, like we detect vehicles at lights. They're getting better at being accurate at detecting pedestrians, but they have to push the button right now.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, install retroreflective signal backplates. So that's what I've got in this picture on the side. We have that backplate that's yellow here and highlighted. Some of our backplates right now are either just black or faded. This brightens up the head so they're easier to see for drivers. ADA pedestrian ramp improvements, update signal controllers. So the box that controls how the lights work is the controller. We do have some older controllers at a few intersections, and we are working on upgrading those. We actually do have the controllers in stock now. So what we need to do is just transfer the data from the old controller into the new one, then we can get those put in. And then separate accessible pedestrian signal push buttons. So those are the push buttons that make some kind of noise or tell you which street you're crossing. There are a few spots that we have where they're a little too close together, so people that are visually impaired or anything like that, if they're too close together, it's hard to identify which way it's telling them to go. Okay, and then I pulled out a few, these are improvements they gave us for a specific intersection, but these are some of the common ones. If you want a full list, you can refer to the full report. The first one is turning lane pedestrian indicator signs. So that's what's in this picture over here. What that is a sign, and you can't see it right here, but it has LED lights around the edge. And when a pedestrian pushes the button, those LEDs will come on to give a little more make the sign jump out a little more. That'll help drivers recognize that a pedestrian is present. Other things they suggested was sidewalk improvements, street lighting improvements, and then there are a few locations where we needed to increase the amount of time that the flashing don't walk or the hand was on at a couple of the intersections. So we've actually already done that. And then they recommended a speed study on 2nd Street. So, and then I wanted to highlight one intersection that is probably, of all the ones they looked at, this one probably had the safety improvement that was most needed. So this is at 16th South and 3rd South. If you've driven out there on the eastbound, if you're traveling eastbound, there is a dual left that turns onto 16th. Currently how that operates is the pedestrians are allowed to go at the same time as the dual left. And the dual left doesn't always necessarily look for pedestrians, right? So we've got a few options here on how we can improve this. And first, probably one of the better ones is, right now we've got crosswalks on all 4 legs. So we have access on all 4 legs. If we could remove this crosswalk, you could let that dual left go, there'd be no conflict with the pedestrians. And there's still access all the way around the intersection. So this alternative would probably be the best for traffic operations and still be safe for pedestrians. One of the issues is we're gonna have to do some ramp work. So this one is probably gonna take a little bit longer. It's not just simply we can remove the crosswalk, but we have to do some ramp work as well. So there's gonna be some design included in that. Some of our other options are, and this is one way, is to change how the signal works a little bit so that if there is a pedestrian that pushes the button, then those lights will turn red, let the pedestrian cross. And then once the pedestrian is served, it'll turn those lights green. So this is gonna impact traffic a little more than removing the crosswalk, but this is a quick solution we can go out there and implement. So that's essentially what's in the road safety audit. And these are, like I said, these are things we can apply, not only the intersections we looked at, but also citywide.
And I just want to say thank you. This is very important work that has been done. What's important is our pedestrian safety. And it's one of the things I have to say, we had the accident that we did at Roosevelt and Midland, well, over a year ago. And I would say that alone didn't, but it was very influential in getting this done and really looking at how our signals are working. And also out of that came an initiative called Remember Our Children that Amy's working with, and that is for pedestrian safety and raising the awareness of the importance of pedestrian safety. And so a lot of these changes, some of these changes are a result of that. And I thank you for your leadership in it. Thank you for working with this. So as you mentioned, some of this has already been implemented. Some of it is yet to be implemented. So we'll put a budget around it, right? And the council will see that,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for Matt? Great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So as mentioned, Amy, thank you. We're going to put Amy on the next council agenda for our communications department update on our survey. My hope this evening was to get through new business because that would allow a lot of people to go home that are going to be sitting here for 2 hours. But we are running about 20 minutes late. Council, what is the will of the council? We only have 6 items. Do you want to move through new business, or do you want to, you say yes? Okay. So we're going to step into new business. The first item is 7.1 on the agenda. This is an action item, and this is to reject all the bids for the Indian Creek Pathway Repair Project. Legal reviewed and approved this, and it's being brought forward by Cody Swander in the Parks Department. Do you have any questions on this? Okay.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Chingula. Yes. Everfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Item 7.2 is an action item. This is to authorize the mayor to sign a memorandum of understanding between the City of Nampa and Valley Regional Transit for transportation funding in the amount of $471,856 for FY24. This is what we approved in the FY24 budget. Then VRT's request for city contributions of $705,506 in FY25 and $862,949 in FY26. Those will be considered as part of the budget process for their respective years. Legal reviewed this, ensured that the correct language was put into this MOU, as we cannot specify for years future. This council cannot obligate the city. And so I know this is all in your packet. Do you have any questions?
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Werner?
No.
Chingula?
No.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
2 in favor, 3 opposed, motion fails.
Okay, so then the question that I'm going to ask is, what do we do from here? Because we did, through our budget process with VRT, commit to the amount that is in here. And we did say that we would work with them. If we're going to take $350,000 of ARPA funds this year, we said that we would consider the MOU as we move forward. So by not approving the MOU, we may need to come back to the table because that may mean we lose the ARPA dollars this year. In fact, I think it's highly likely we are going to lose because that was the commitment, was the MOU, knowing that the next council will approve that budget or disapprove the budget. But that means that we probably this year, what we have budgeted may need to not take from VRT. Mark, would you come forward real quickly? So this is going to be a longer item than I had thought, but I'm thinking that if we don't approve the MOU, then we don't approve any funding for VRT.
Mayor,
Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a possibility. I would have to go back to Valley Regional Transit and see if they would accept perhaps a one-year MOU with what we budgeted already. But my take was that from a long-range planning perspective, they needed to go out on a 3-year MOU. And then in response to that, they were able to utilize pandemic dollars and put it towards to reduce our total amount. But I can go back and I can ask.
Mayor, just
Yeah.
just a quick on, I'm fine with what we okayed as far as last year. I think that was, I realize we okayed the overall budget, but that was my, all along is what I said I would approve, what we approved last year, which was what, 378 or something?
378,000.
8,000, so I would be fine with that, not with this amount.
Mayor Kling, and I voiced the same. I did approve the 300 and something thousand, but the second part of this is the 862,940, I did not approve. So unless you can come up with a different policy or procedure by the MOU specifying that number that we approved in the budget, I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with the 800,000.
Yeah, and we're not paying the 821,
That's not
856,
Yeah.
856. The one-time relief assistance of 350 brings that to 471, 856, of which we appropriated in the budget under general government.
So we did approve, Doug, just for clarity, in this year's budget, we approved $471,856.13 in
That's correct.
FY24 budget.
And
Okay.
since we budget annually, nothing else has been formally approved, notwithstanding the MOU, but this is all we've approved is the 471.
Okay,
Mayor Quinn.
yes.
And my understanding too, in framing the words here, again, contributions in fiscal year 25 and 26 are by a different council. They either approve it or don't approve it. There's no promises made. It's not. It might be an MOU as far as just in language, but there's nothing as far as in stone written at this point about those years. All we're
That's
talking
correct.
about is just this fiscal year.
Yes.
That is correct. My concern is that we have people that depend on these services. And so October 1's a new fiscal year.
Correct.
So I know at the council, when we had the new executive director, Eileen Clegg, or CEO for Valley Regional Transit, when she was here, one of the things that we mentioned was that in order to take advantage of $350,000, it's looking at a 3-year plan. If we're going to take that, plus we have $116,000 next year. So I just want to say, this is a big deal to say no to this MOU when it comes to public transportation for the city of Nampa. So I'm hoping we're taking this very seriously. It didn't pass tonight. We will be back with something at the next council meeting, but I will say this could mean that we're not providing public transportation. So we're going to have to figure that out. It's a big deal.
Mayor, Mark, why do we have to do a 3-year commitment to get that ARPA funds?
For VRT, it was more of a long-range funding plan for them, so they can kind of frame what their budget would look like for the next 2 years. So by committing to these not-to-exceed amounts, it helps them budget some of these pandemic dollars towards the first year. That's all that it was. I can go back to them and ask if they'll do a 1 year with the same 471,856 is probably what I'm going to do, but I can't guarantee without the second and the third year MOU that they'll commit to that.
And I think it's because if we're not committed to public transportation, they could give this money to somebody else that is committed to public transportation. They don't need to spend it in Nampa if we're not committed to public transportation. I know Caldwell expanded their services significantly this year. So if we're not committed to public transportation, those funds could go to a community that is.
But that doesn't make any sense because we're voting year by year, so we can't bind another council to
right.
commit to it. So what's the difference between the 3-year versus the 1? What commitment does that show? Because either way, we could come back and not vote for it next year.
That is correct, yes. So it's not binding.
It's not binding. There is a different council. This council cannot make a decision to commit a future council to a financial decision. So the language in the agreement clearly states that, because there will be a different council sitting here at the next budget cycle. So,
Yeah, Mayor, let me just say one thing. You've heard this for years, and as I've told Elaine, which I think she's a great director, by the way, and I've complimented you too, Mark. But my time is up here at the end of December, but still in 6 years, and you've heard this repeatedly, so you probably just soon not hear it again, but I've not seen, and she says they're working on their software. I've asked for 6 years for statistics. Ridership, just not the number of rides, but the number of people riding. And I've seen a little more than what I saw in the last few years, and I know she's working on it, but I've still not seen it. So that's why, that's my rationale for not more than just what we budgeted for last year.
okay. Okay, with that, I
Madam
think,
Mayor?
yes.
Let's make a comment. So my understanding and being on the VRT board, we have been underfunding Nampa's contribution for VRT for a number of years. And so we're trying to catch back up to that, what the funding needs to be from Nampa. And really, for the FY 25 and 26 budgetary, I think that they are just trying to plan ahead about where they're going to be, even though there's no commitment from the council, because they knew that couldn't be. And we had that same discussion during our budget hearing. And so I'm a little surprised that we approved it then, but we're not approving it now.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
And one final point that I'll make is I remember Tom coming before us and speaking about that gap coverage, that future councils wouldn't be obligated to come up with anything more than this one amount, 471, over those 2 years. So the difference was going to be taken care of through the transportation department. So that's where the balance was.
Not general fund. Okay, with that, we will move on, and Mark, we'll figure out what we do next. We'll bring something at the next council meeting, or at least a report, if not an action item. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Let's move to item 7.3 on the agenda. This is an action item to authorize the Fleet Division, Services Division to proceed with generating the signed purchase orders for the various vendors and manufacturers for approved FY24 vehicles and equipment for the estimated amount of $2,573,743. The city will not take delivery of any purchases prior to October 1. It was approved in the FY24 budget. This is to allow us to get on the list right now, because if you're at the end of the list, the back order is significant. So it's just, that's all it is giving the authorization to move forward and generating.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Angula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Bruner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.4 is an action item. This is to adopt the City of Nampa roadside memorial policy for inclusion in the engineering development process and policy manual. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity to read it, and I really appreciate Crystal Craig's work on it. Do you need a presentation, or are you okay to move forward?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
7.5 is an action item. This is the first reading of street naming ordinance for South Quiet Creek Lane, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Napa, Canyon County, Idaho, naming a private street South Quiet Creek Lane.
Make a motion to adopt the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.6 is an action item, and it's authorizing the mayor to sign the state and local agreement for construction for the Franklin Boulevard and Karcher Road intersection project. This is key number 22102 with Idaho Transportation Department in the amount of $306,136. This also authorizes the city clerk to certify the agreement by signing the resolution provided and required by ITD. This was a standard agreement form that was approved by legal, and it is in the FY23 budget.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you for allowing us to get through new business items. And so with that, we will step now into our public hearings. Our first public hearing is 8.1 on the agenda, and this is an action item. This is the annexation and zoning to RS6, which is single-family residential zoning district, and a potential development agreement at 002306, 2414, and 2418 East Locust Lane. This and a subdivision preliminary plat for the Stoddard Crossing subdivision located in the southeast corner of, I won't go through all that. This is for Patrick Connor with Providence Properties representing Sawtooth Land Acquisition. The original concept was 92 single-family detached dwelling units with 15 lots, common lots. So this particular public hearing was continued from the original public hearing on June 20th, and then it was continued to July 17th and August 21st. And so I really appreciate the fact that we are here today and ready to go. And so with that,
Mayor,
yes.
sorry. Before he speaks, I just need to
Yeah.
make a disclosure.
Yes.
Upon advice of legal, I'm working with a company called Providence Holdings. They're a different company. This is Providence Properties. So I have no working relationship on this project with him.
Okay, thank you. And then I think I've got, so my notes, we have the note that at the June 20th meeting, after the public hearing was closed, the council did have discussion regarding density and et cetera. So I believe we closed public hearing that night. So tonight, we're going to go through a public hearing process. And the process is the applicant comes back and shares an update on where you are, what has transpired. Then we have a staff report, as we typically do. Then if council, do I need a vote to reopen public hearing? Okay, so then I will ask for a vote from council to reopen the public hearing. Any comments, I don't know if we have people signed up, any comments tonight really need to be directed toward what is new. We have record of all of the prior comments. And so what I have written here, should I be reading that? So when we get to public hearing, I may do that. Todd?
Mayor, if I might, maybe before we have any comment from the applicant or any folks in the audience, if we'd reopen the public hearing, and then appreciate the direction. I think it's not a hard and fast rule, but an encouragement for people to address the new things. But folks do have their 3 minutes, and they can do what they will.
Perfect. Okay, so with that, I would stand for a motion to reopen public hearing for this.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call?
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
So as the applicant does come forward, for those wishing to testify this evening, My hope is that you would listen to the new, what is new, before you come forward and speak, so that you can be referencing where we are today on this particular project. So thank you. So our applicant, Patrick Connor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. For the record, Patrick Connor, 701 South Allen Street, Meridian. Happy to be in front of you all tonight. I feel like it's been a few false starts, but very happy to present Starter Crossing to you all this evening. So the essential sort of makeup of the project did not change too significantly, but there were 4 major improvements. But the request is still RS6 zoned. It's still 92 single-family lots, 15 common lots, and a slight increase in our open space to 3.48. Before, I think it was 3.14 acres. So just to recap kind of where we were and where we're at today, so some positive comments that you all gave us at the last council meeting in June. You appreciated the lot transition size between the neighbors to our west. It was good and appropriate. They appreciate the various housing options within the community, the 70-foot lots, 60 and 50-foot lots. The amenities were good. There's nice integration to the Stoddard Trail with those 2 points of access. And then good bones has merit, I think was a quote that was said. Some of the feedback you all gave us particularly was all about the single point of access and the too many homes on one point of access. And then I believe Councilmember Haverfield said it'd be great to see a connection point to the adjacent subdivision, and then we kind of left it there. So I'm happy tonight to present kind of 4 major improvements that include a roadway connection to Shane Street, which is the roadway to the west. That would provide 2 full points of access. An improvement of that point of access of Shane Street to Locust for better safety and access for both communities. A new pedestrian connection for the Shannon Circle subdivision to cut through our subdivision to have access to Stoddard Trail. And then we actually were able to increase some of the open space and park lots to make more useful. So we'll get into each one of these, but sort of a timeline that we went through to get where we are today. So June, we had our first council meeting. 2 days later, after that council meeting, I sat down with the road users board at Flying M, and it was a really good meeting, and I actually invited Daniel Badger to come, and he was extremely helpful and obviously knowledgeable about everything road related and that matter. And we kind of started talking about more or less what I was asking for and seeing if there's anything that we could do to help them out as well. And we started kind of working through different concepts and plans. So they had we had sort of a proposal. They had a first community meeting, kind of came back to me saying that we needed to have a little bit more information and understand exactly how this thing was going to work. So I did a formal presentation to their neighborhood in August 6th. About a month ago, and then after that presentation, their community voted in favor of the proposal that we kind of come together for. And then lately, we've been working on our memorandum of understanding of how this will kind of play out. We do have a verbally agreed upon MOU. It's not formally signed yet. There are members of the board here tonight that I hope will testify about kind of our progress with the MOU. They're going through some signature authority issues with their board, and so they're hopefully their final meeting with their legal team is going to be Thursday. They can enter into that formal MOU arrangement. Hopefully by then we can start the formal contract between both parties, but we'll get into that MOU a little bit later. So previously we had the original concept in red, again had just that single point of access. And then the updated concept had these changes. So at the bottom left, you'll see that we have that full access point on Shane Street. The top left is that pedestrian access that will go through their northeast corner and our northwest corner. And then the 2 large circles are just kind of better, larger amenity areas to kind of create sort of amenity park spot. We eliminated some of the drainage areas to make it more usable open space. And the open space went up from 17% to 18.7%. So a little bit about their access. So currently their Shane Street access is only about 16 feet of pavement. So it's not very wide. It's hardly wide enough for 2 cars as it is now. So when we started talking about the conversation is we had an ability to add a little bit more width to that access. So if we were to redesign that access, we can make it wider, safer, add additional lanes. So what we proposed was, in widening that, we can provide a dedicated right turn lane in, left out, and right out, as shown on the right side. Right now, they really just have about a lane and a half, and there's no marking or anything like that, and it's not very safe. Their other point of access is actually kind of on top of a crest of a hill, and so not many people use that point of access. They mainly use Shane Street because it's safer from a visibility standpoint. And so that was a big kind of a win-win on both sides. It was something that we could help provide, and that it's going to kind of make their life, I think, a little bit safer and better. This is something that Daniel and Caleb and his team helped us work through. So that section of the road will actually become a public city street, and then it would stay private at the point of intersection into our subdivision. Also, the entrance into our subdivision will also be a similar layout, a dedicated right in, left out, right out. So that'd be 2 full points of access. One concern that came up from a lot of the neighbors was they didn't want to have increased traffic within their subdivision of folks cutting through or using their internal roadways as a way to maybe go around traffic, even though there's 2 perfectly full access points as it is. So we kind of came up with this concept of this triangle right lane deterrent. So it's kind of shown the street coming down there that is coming out of our subdivision, taking a left to go out to Locust Street. So it's the kind of triangular peninsula is supposed to deter people from doing kind of a big U-turn or 3-point turn to cut through their neighborhood. So that was something we worked a lot with both the city and also the board, and trying to figure out to deter a right turn there. And that was something that was presented to the city, or presented to the neighborhood, and that they eventually voted in favor for. What's not shown on here are some landscaping or boulders within that triangle space to prevent anyone hopping a curb or cutting through there. Even though if you look at the greater map, they'd be traveling 5 times as far to access a worse, intersection as it was. You have a perfectly good intersection here and another good intersection at the main intersection. This again is showing kind of that view from Locust looking up Shane Street. So you have that nice entrance points now where it used to be 16 feet. Now it's the larger kind of, I think it's 34 feet wide. And then that dedicated right turn lane off of Locust. And this shows kind of the similar entrance, our main entrance of Starter Crossing further down the street. And then on the north side, we're showing kind of the larger open space that we were able to make. Also the access. So one thing that kind of came out in our early discussions were Stoddard Trail, and I was talking about how great of a trail it was and how I took my son biking on it and it was so great. And they said, well, it's so hard for us to get there because we have to walk down Locust and it's not safe. There's not a sidewalk. And I was like, and I think one of the board members said, it'd be great if we had easy access there. I was like, I think we can kind of figure something out. So if you can move the little time clicker, Parker, they can see a little bit clearer. Anyway, the clock thing is right above what I'm trying to talk. There we go. I don't know who's in control of it. Anyway, so they also were talking about they didn't want to have too much pedestrian access going through their subdivision, and so we would have a private gate there that we would install and put in for them, but they could control kind of the code there. They could access that pathway, get to the Starter Trail and back. And again, they could own and change the code as they need to in the future. So that was kind of another big sort of off thing that we could give them at not too much of a price for us, but it was a critical kind of access point to the Starter Trail for the Shannon Circle subdivision. This again is just showing kind of more renderings of park space that we have on that north side, the large kind of the playground and the ball field. Here's a closer look of that. And then another shot of the park there with that larger park space on the north side. So like I said, we do have an agreed upon memorandum of understanding. It's a verbal commitment now, so it's not officially signed. The folks are here tonight if they want to talk more about it. But again, what I'm asking for is if we can include this memorandum of understanding, and I sent it to staff, and I also have a whole bunch of copies of it here. But if we could include this in the DA as something that would be honored. It really focuses on these 4 main items: the connection of Stoddard to Shane Street. It deals with how the right-of-way dedication to the city would operate, and how it would be improved to NAMPA standards. The construction fencing that's along between the property lines, our contribution to improving some drainage improvements in the northeast corner of their property, and about the pathway connection, private gate, and then a construction easement that we would need to do work on their property, as well as contractor insurance that they requested. So I am asking for that to be included in the DA if possible, and we can work through that. So again, there's some other conditions of approval that I brought up at the end of the last meeting in June, and we're completely fine with some of those conditions that are listed here that are in the staff report. So that kind of concludes the presentation. I'm open to any other questions, and I'm glad the public hearing is open, because I've worked a lot with the Road Users Board. We've had, I think, 3 meetings at Flying M, a lot of phone calls, meeting on site, late night texts, phone calls. I mean, I've gotten to know them pretty well. So I think they're probably happy to not have to deal with me anymore. But I think in the end, you all asking to make this project, give it another look, give us more time to work through it, has and will end up being a much better project in the long term. I think it's going to make these 2 communities, both the NAMPA community of Stoddard Crossing and the county subdivision of Shannon Circle, even though they're not the same community, hopefully they're better integrated with the pathway connection, as well as improving their main access point on Shane Street. So I think it kind of took a long time to get us here after 3 months of going back and forth, but I think in the long term will be a result in a much better community, both communities. So thank you.
Mayor.
Patrick, thank you. Yes, questions from council? Yes.
Patrick, looking at Shane Street and the widening, the property owner there at Locust and Shane, they're not having to improve anything on their property, correct?
That's correct. It's
So
all.
the 16-foot wide section, its raw edge at this point stays as it is.
Correct.
So your widening of Shane Street is all on your own property?
That's correct.
To the east?
That's
Okay,
correct.
thank you. Just wanted that distinction made.
And also just to clarify, the frontage improvements, or the sidewalk, curb and gutter is on our side. So there will be sidewalk, curb and gutter on the west side of that road. I do not believe, and we'll have to confirm with engineering, I don't think that there's going to be sidewalk and curb on the east side of the street, since it's not a full road width, or it's not that side is not city property. Just for clarification.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll let, in the staff presentation, when we hit the traffic side, we'll have Daniel speak to that after we have Parker. Are there any other questions at this time? Yes.
Really quick, Patrick, on the green space, I see you have a playground. Is that the only amenity on the green spaces, is just that playground?
That currently is the only built amenity that we have. But the pathways, I mean, I think I've said it a few times, a lot of people, the number one thing that they use and that they always ask for is just places to walk and pathway and connectivity and things like that. So that currently is the only built amenity that we have for this subdivision. But we do have 17% open space, and I didn't do the takeoff of how much detached pathway we have through our parks, but it's pretty significant. It's on the north side of the subdivision on the very top. It goes through the parks in the center, and then it can 2 connection points to Stoddard, the Stoddard Trail.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Patrick, you know the process, so we'll have you back at the closing. Thank you. Okay, Parker.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Parker Bodley, Planning and Zoning Department. So, to clarify, sorry, this request is for annexation and zoning. The original application had a plat that you saw in the previous hearing. The applicant has come back with a concept plan, not platted. So, Going forward, this will be annexation and zoning with a concept plan that will be in a development agreement should you approve it. And he would come in, the applicant would come in with a new plat that would go through the Planning and Zoning Commission to determine if it meets the concept plan in the development agreement. So with that said, a lot of this has been covered already, so I won't go into the detail. The previous plat, as well as the concept plan that you've already seen. The one thing to point out that had been pointed out last time with the plat is that the abutting properties along the county subdivision are larger than what would be allowed. We do allow have an allowance for larger lots against county subdivisions, where this one exceeds even that allowance. So there is a request for a waiver that that concept plan can exceed that amount to match the county subdivisions, subdivision to the west. The public agency comments, there's code compliance requests for getting rid of the weeds and debris. They've been doing work out there to fix that, I believe. The Parks Department is requiring a 10-foot pathway along East Locust Lane that would be put in upon development. This is 6-minute response time from Fire Station 2. And I will defer to Daniel, as you had mentioned, to comment on the traffic. The surrounding area, it's a lot of county subdivisions. There is the Lava Springs subdivision nearby, as well as Lava Falls. Lava Springs is a planned unit development. They are at 2.3 dwelling units an acre, which is would be within low density in our comprehensive plan. The Lava Falls is 11.6 dwelling units an acre. As you can see on this future land use map, this is our previous version, which is what was in place at the time this application came in. This is low density at that time. They're stretching medium density from the south. This is, however, currently all medium density in our current adopted future land use map. The schools, Skyview High School is 2.9 miles, South Middle School is 1.7, and Greenhurst Elementary is 2.1 miles. Again, stating this plat was the original application plat. So this is a little different. Analysis was done on that plat. Further analysis will be done on a plat when it comes in that matches the concept plan. The concept plan doesn't deviate much from the new concept plan, so a lot of these numbers will be the same, and staff doesn't have any issues with those amounts. The applicant had covered the open space as well. So in regards to annexation, staff finds that they meet the requirements for property ownership, permission being contiguous, which is on the northeast side, and then the RS6 zoning is consistent with the future land use map. It provides single-family housing, which matches the surrounding area. Lot sizes are between 10,000 and 11,000 along the west side that abuts the Shannon Circle subdivision, which provides a buffer between that and the smaller lots within this subdivision. The subdivision would be extending utilities to future developments, and there's sufficient capacity to meet the service this development. And then they would be making frontage improvements and building out the side path, 10-foot side path as well. Conditions of approval were in the staff report. I'll point out the last couple So 16 is that they submit a preliminary plat that matches the concept plan. That will be, staff recommends would be in a development agreement. And then the last one is to provide that memorandum of understanding for the Shannon Circle Road Users Association within the development agreement. There's a couple motions here for you. So the first one is for annexation and zoning. Should you move to approve it or deny it? And then because they are essentially withdrawing the preliminary plat, there's a motion to deny that, and then they can come in with the new plat that matches the concept plan. So I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Parker. Are there any questions for Parker at this time? Thank you. Okay, do we need to hear from Daniel? Here we go. Thank you, Daniel.
Mayor, Council, Patrick represented the changes very well. Engineering is supportive of that change. While it's not exactly what we would have preferred, it is certainly better than what was presented previously, and we're very happy that he was willing to work with the neighbors and that the neighbors were willing to work with them. As to the sidewalk for that Shane Street portion, that would just be on their side of the street at this point. At some future time, if that property were to redevelop, there would be sidewalk and other things required of the property on the west side, but that's not something that would be required of the development at this time.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for
Mayor,
Daniel?
just a quick
Yes.
one on the triangle that to kind of subdue.
The Y there,
Yeah,
we would consider that kind of a Y
I can see
intersection.
some stubborn people still trying to, and I realize if there's no cars coming from the, on the right side, it would be safe, but otherwise you got to take a real wide turn there. And so somebody going out into the other lane of traffic, pretty much how do you prevent that?
This is a local roadway, so I'll be real honest, I don't, from a safety standpoint, I don't see a significant concern there. And I would agree that going out and through the neighborhood, unless something were blocking both of the entrances there, I don't see that as an attractive vehicular movement for the vehicles in the neighborhood.
Okay, very good, thanks.
Thank you. Any
Yeah.
other questions? Yes.
Daniel, I heard it stated that Shane Street's only 16 feet wide. Is that correct?
The current pavement there for Shane Street, yes, that's the approximate width.
Does that qualify for fire engine access?
The existing Shane Street was put in the county however long ago. Would it meet current fire access under today's standards? No, unless it were just a residential driveway. But this project will improve that up to the point of connection between the neighborhood and them so that it would be compliant where it will become city road.
So how wide is it going to be, just for clarity?
From top back of curb to the edge of pavement, I believe, was 38 feet, if I'm remembering correctly.
New improvement
Thank you.
meets the
Yeah.
requirements.
Thank you.
They're still in the county, so I guess for the county to determine.
Well, and
Or the fire
it's an existing roadway, so it's, unless they were to redevelop something, it probably wouldn't kick in any new requirements anyway.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Patrick. Okay, so we have reopened the public hearing, and this is a public hearing. It's opportunity to hear. So we do have 3 minutes for each person to speak. Please come forward and state your name and your address, and then appreciate comments on the changes that have taken place. Yes? If you want to. So, Todd, is it necessary to speak about the following people spoke in opposition last time? Do we need to restate that since we're reopening? Or do we just start again?
Tell them what. Sorry, Madam Mayor, Todd, I was wondering if we should state what certain individuals stated at the last meeting.
Madam Mayor and Shar, I don't think we need to. Their testimony's in the record.
Okay.
Folks had the opportunity to come and listen previously if they wanted to. So I think we're okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay,
Madam Mayor, our first speaker is Vivian Sanchez, and on deck is Carolyn King.
My name is Carolyn King, and I live at 2518 East Locust Lane. And I realize this is a concept, and I'm not completely familiar with it because we never got a preview of it. But my concern is I would strongly encourage them to keep the lateral a greenway. And the second thing is that they do not know where the pump is going to be for my irrigation. I will be mainly the only person, maybe Tammy Allen will use it, and they don't know where that's going to be placed yet. And if it's not going to be placed on my property, I would ask them to have sufficient parking for me to drive down to be able to turn it on, because that looks like it's going to be a very busy intersection where I've been told where it was going to be. And the third thing was keeping the electricity to that pump in my name, because I am the one who's going to be paying the bill, and I want the bill coming to me at my address. And basically, that's all. It looks like it's going to be nice, but thank you.
Caroline, a quick question. What did you call that?
Pardon me?
You mentioned lateral, but what exactly do we refer to that as?
It's a greenway, that no homes be built over the top of it, because I've been there 53 years and hoping that my family will be there another 50. And if something happens to that buried lateral, we have to have access to dig it up. And we can't go in somebody's backyard, tear down their fence, tear down their trees. You know, that's a big imposition without a big lawsuit and having attorneys involved. So that's what I meant about just keeping, if they want to bury the ditch, keep it so we have access to it some way down years from now.
Okay, so keep the greenway and the lateral open.
Yes.
And the electricity in your name.
In my name, please.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Vivian Sanchez.
Hi. I'm a member of the infamous, one of the board members for the Shannon Circle Road Users. And I really want to thank you all for being patient with us. This has been a long process.
And could you state your address real quickly?
3525 Wheeler Circle.
Thank you.
Nampa. So it may seem like we've been a little contentious with this, but we have a very, very beautiful neighborhood, and it's very peaceful, and it's very quiet, and it's very hidden, and folks don't even know it's there. So they come in and they go, wow, we didn't even know this was back here. And it's just a place that brings all of us in the neighborhood a lot of peace. And so we wanted to keep it as much as possible from you know, hordes of people coming through there and walking dogs or doing whatever, make it a safe place, but we also know about progress. So we are getting close to that agreement. We just need to meet with our attorney again and verify some legal matters. And we really appreciate everything, how Patrick has been very patient with us and how you've all been patient with us, because we're kind of caught in the middle. We have, you know, the development coming in. We want to work the best that we can for that. And then we also have to represent our own neighborhood. So the process has been for us to meet with Patrick, take it back to our neighbors in meetings, which, you know how meetings are. You have to set them up, you have to meet deadlines, you have to do all those kind of things. So I think we're through all of that now, and hopefully by the next meeting or so, we should have everything lined up. It just all kind of depends on the attorney. But we do appreciate all of your patience for that. And as a board, we thank you for that, for giving us the time to work all these things out, work out all these negotiations with the developer, which I think is going to benefit all of us in the long run and build a safer community. And yes, there always is that one person who's going to jump that curb and come into the neighborhood. And that's been my biggest concern is, people using that for a cut through because it is going to increase traffic in that area. So we wanted to make it as safe as possible for our community and keep that sense of peace that we've had. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I thank you very much.
Vivian, thank you so much for your testimony and just the work and the collaboration.
It's been a collaboration and we are working through it and we're almost to the end, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Ed Adams, and on deck is Bonnie Torgerson.
Ed Adams, 3512 Wheeler Circle. Madam Mayor, Council, also a board member from the Shannon Circle Road Users Association, and basically everything that Vivian said, I just want to say we're on the same page. Yeah, so that's all, unless there's a particular question.
I don't see any questions, but thank you so much. Appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight to share that, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Bonnie Torgerson.
Can I just pass if my questions have been answered? Is that okay?
Do you want to be noted as in support or in opposition? Or, okay, thank you. And go ahead and give us your
Bonnie
address.
Torgerson, 2305 East Locust Lane. I'm right across the street from the entrances. I'm actually sandwiched between the two now. Sounds like we're already going to go through with it. My main concern, and I didn't get to come in June, was the amount of traffic. I believe the turn lane study analysis, you guys talked about it at the Planning and Zoning meeting in April. It was done in 21. Traffic has increased a great deal on Locust Lane since that study was done. I understand they're putting in the turn lanes, but I understand too they never did a traffic impact study. And so now we have all the lava springs and all that traffic from those other new subdivisions. So there's a great deal more traffic on Locust Lane than there was before. So now we would have, we guess, 180 cars or so added to that. So that is our concern, and for that reason, we're not for it. But thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone else that did advance sign up.
Is there anyone here that had intended to testify tonight that did not get signed up? Yes, go ahead and come forward and give us your name and address.
My name's Dalton Skelton, and I reside at 2422 East Locust Lane. It's a little place in the corner there. Since the last public hearing, we haven't heard from Patrick. We share a well with that property, and we're opposed to it. So that's all.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Mayor Kling, I
Yes.
do have one question. Would you please clarify where your well is?
It's right on the property line. Be the west side of our property and the east side of theirs, right next to the center entrance.
So is that going to affect the water flow?
No, we just haven't settled on anything. We have an easement right now that's 20 feet, and if they put a fence up or landscape it and we have to go in and tear that down, I'm not going to be responsible for it. So and we have an agreement in place, so that's all stated, but there hasn't been any reach out from Patrick to unmuddy the waters per se.
Okay, and I'm sure that's going to be resolved here shortly.
Hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. I do remember the discussion from a previous testimony regarding your well. And so, Patrick, thank you for addressing that in your closing comments. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else here that did not get signed up that had intended to testify? Okay, seeing no one. Do we need a clarification on the traffic impact study from Daniel? The fact that it was done in 21 and the number of cars increasing. Daniel, did you have any comment to that?
Mayor, Council, As we look at those turn lane analysis, the number of vehicle trips that would have had to have increased to make a change to the result would have been significant, to the point where we did not, in our professional judgment, feel that it was necessary, nor do we believe that the volume of traffic has increased to such a level that it would have changed those results.
Okay. And council, do we have any questions for Daniel? Nope. Daniel, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, so this is the opportunity for our applicant, Patrick, to come forward and respond to any comments or questions and offer closing comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just first want to thank Vivian, Ed for being here, and some other folks for being here tonight. Like Vivian and Ed alluded to, it has been a process, and like you said, Mayor, it's been a really good collaboration, and I think in the long term, I think it'll be a really great connection of communities in this area. Carolyn, been working with Carolyn a lot this summer with her pump and making sure she's getting significant water and enough time on her pump. So we are trying to finalize, and we haven't gotten to the full engineering of the well and the irrigation. Right now, it probably would make most sense to have on her property, given that she's going to be the main user. There's another property on the other side of her entrance who hasn't been using the water, but it makes the most sense to have it on Carolyn's property. So I can't commit to it now because I'm not an irrigation engineer or designer on that end, but we're going to continue to work with Carolyn and with her son-in-law, Mike, as we had this summer, to make sure the right solution is there. Currently, the lateral it's planned to be piped. I can't point well on this, but do you see the out parcel between the two entrance points? There's one house that's a long rectangle that's an out parcel. On the north side of that, you see a lot of those kind of trees planted. So that would be the route of, yep, exactly. So that's where the lateral would cut through there. And then it may cross the street and go through the 10-foot wide landscape area on the south side of that stub street. So that could be the route for water to Carolyn's property. There's a number of ways that we could do. We could also cross just north of Tammy's house and then down south and then cross directly into Carolyn's property. We just needed to design it so to make sure that works well. It will be piped, and the point of that is to keep debris and other things out. The issue with the pipe right now, it backs up, it has a bunch of debris and stuff in it because it's open, there's ducks living in it, it's kind of a mess. So we're trying to make it kind of modernized and cleaner for her so she can have all the water that she needs and that she's entitled to. But we have to make sure that any other users on it, including Tammy there, gets her water as well. So we'll continue to work with Carolyn on the pipe and make sure the electric is in her name, as she is the water master for that delivery. Bonnie's comments on the traffic issues. So we are giving additional right-of-way to the city. So when the city is ready, they can add a center turn lane if needed. Again, we are providing 2 full access points with a right turn lane, left turn lane, and right out, left out, dedicated right in. And so as far as traffic backing up within the community, I think it's going to be alleviated greatly. And just during those peak times, there may be some congestion along Locust. But I think, as Daniel alluded to, right now the turn lane analysis on that center turn lane was not warranted. And then Dalton, I apologize. I was really occupied with the board matters on this left turn lane, and like I said at the last hearing, our plan is to give the well to you and your family. Currently, we have a shared well agreement. If he owns the well within that, I think we can work within how that's going to work out. If you want to meet in the lobby, we can maybe set up a time to iron everything out and not pay attorneys any more fees for any extra agreement. Yeah, I think that kind of concludes everything on that matter. Are there any questions? I stand for that.
Council, do you have any questions?
Mayor.
Yes.
Patrick, I'm interested to know the location of East Gypsum Street, that little stub street that goes to the east, why it's located where it's at.
So you can't see it well on here. I wonder.
The only reason I ask that is it appears that if there is ever a continuation of that street to the east, there's really not a whole lot of room to develop anything to the north of it, as far as lot-wise.
That's correct. And I think you had a similar question in the last hearing. I think the answer, maybe Daniel can explain more, but it's supposed to line up with Gypsum Street that's in Lava Falls. And I think that's why it's located at that particular place. On the north side, that subdivision, I believe, is already built out. Not entirely sure, but that is where it was recommended for us to stub it out based on what engineering had recommended.
I'm sure there was somebody that had that thought in mind, but it doesn't leave a lot of property to develop anything other than tiny homes, or just leave it in park space.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if Daniel wants to chime in on that question.
I don't know. Go ahead, Daniel.
Mayor, so we can certainly, in the plating process, shifting that north or south a lot would not be something that would bring it out of substantial conformance with the concept plan. And so during the plating process, we can certainly reevaluate whether that's the exact spot it needs to be, or if it can come south a little bit to provide an easier transition between that and development of the adjacent property. We're certainly happy to look at that then.
Thank you.
So, Patrick, just a quick question. If in a motion, if we put in a development agreement that the development agreement is to include the MOU and conditions of approval, which is normal, and then we understand it's a concept plan, not a plat, but in the development agreement, I don't know if this language would be correct, to keep the greenway or the lateral open or available, because we want to ensure that the outcome is that that lateral is, and maybe the word is accessible to the current property owner, along with the electricity. And then that you achieve a well agreement, an agreement on the well with the adjoining property owner.
Yeah, Mayor, I think the latter part, the well agreement with the property owner, I think that's appropriate. The language having the lateral open is confusing because it's going to be piped.
Right, it's not going to be
so
open.
I think accessible is a better term. So I think if it was something to the effect of the delivery of irrigation water across the property will be piped and will be accessible to receivers of the water or something to that effect. I don't know if there's like a boilerplate.
Mayor,
language.
could I suggest
Yeah.
A condition might be something about that the delivery of irrigation shall be accessible for maintenance to the property or the receiving users. That might be a easier way, and then we can verify that during the plating action.
Okay. And that you come to an agreement on the well for the adjoining property.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure, because those things should be based on the testimony tonight in the development agreement, so that hopefully that all works. Okay. Any other questions for Patrick?
Mayor?
Yes.
Patrick, how big is that lot size on the top right?
Top right, 1.6 acres.
Okay. I'm just thinking, this has a lot of homes. Is it still 92? Is that correct?
Correct.
92 homes. And I'm just thinking of amenities and things. I think it's important that we create spaces within these communities that allow people to congregate and to have fun and to, hang out, whatever. So I'm thinking like a pickleball court or something like that. Have you guys thought about that? Maybe some fire pits or disc golf, anything like that?
Yes, we have. And I didn't show it on here, I'm not showing the presentation, but with our new ownership, we are all about, quote, enhancing lives, and amenities and livability and everything like that is a big part of it. And a big thing is kind of outdoor living spaces. So that's one thing we've thought about for either of the two large green spaces. something like a covered pavilion with like picnic tables, things like that. A fire pit, I think, was something else, kind of a natural playscape for kids as opposed to jungle gyms having kind of, you all have seen it. My kid loves playing on anything but what he's supposed to play on, so it's nice to have a natural thing like that. So, yeah, so I'm open to that, having an additional amenity with the community. If I think that would be beneficial.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'll just remind, not all council members are that concerned about pickleball anymore.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, I just want to ensure before we close public hearing that we've addressed any questions with our applicant. Seeing none. Patrick, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the work. Okay, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this is an opportunity for council discussion. Are there any comments?
Mayor Kling, I like the modifications that have been made. I think it's great that there's been a collaboration between the developer and the property owners to the west to allow them to work together on that second entrance. That was important to me the first time around. The fact that our staff's working on the roadway improvements on Locust Lane to provide that third lane as well, I think is good. So I think it's a great modification, and I'm in support of it as it stands.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? If there are no other comments, is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, we don't have that second motion in our packet, but we have to deny that, is that correct? On the plat?
I just want to double check, yes. Do we have to deny the subdivision preliminary plat? Or can we just not address it?
Madam Mayor, my understanding was on the record that request was withdrawn. Therefore, if they've withdrawn it, you don't have to deny it. There's the annexation and the development agreement and site plan or concept plan at this point.
Perfect.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I move to approve the annexation and zoning to RS6, single-family residential zoning district at 0-2306, 2414, and 2418 East Locust Lane, and subdivision preliminary plat for Stoddard Crossing, subdivision for Patrick Connor, Providence Properties, representing Sawtooth Land Acquisition LLC and WFS LLC, with all conditions listed in the staff report. Waive the lot size requirement for lots along the western subdivision boundary, and adopt the proposed findings of approval as stated in the staff report.
And may I add to that, the comments that they include the MOU, because I don't see that in there, that the MOU is part of the development agreement as requested, and that the delivery of irrigation is accessible via a pipe, and that there is, I don't know how to, I can't read all my writing.
The greenway and lateral opening.
Well, we talked about, Daniel, the way you worded it. Go ahead, you've got it?
So, condition one, achieving a well agreement with the adjacent property owner.
Okay.
And then the delivery of irrigation shall be accessible to the users.
Okay, do we need to mention electrical? Stays in the power, stays in Carolyn King's name, as requested?
I can add that.
Okay.
I would like to amend my motion as stated.
Second.
Okay.
Mayor, can I just ask one clarifying question? Just want to make sure with Councilmember Reynolds that motion didn't include approval of the preliminary plat, because that had been withdrawn, and I thought I may have heard that, but.
Does it say that in there?
Just add that it's a concept plan, not a preliminary.
I'll add to the motion, it's a concept plan and not a preliminary plat.
Perfect, thank you.
My second stands.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, I'll just said, I think it's still a lot of lots there, but with the access that has been added and the collaboration, then I will compromise of having a little I think too many houses in an area of land. So I will approve this.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Staff, in our discussion, is there anything we need to know? Nope. Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Ingula.
Yes.
Hammerfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
I just want to say thank you to Patrick. You've been very professional, and the collaboration with the neighbors is so important. And so I just want to thank you for your professionalism, and to the neighbors, thank you for your willingness to come forward, to spend the time that you've spent, to share your ideas. And hopefully we've come up with a solution that is a good solution for that area. And I appreciate the comments that, maybe the growth is not necessarily what you would desire, but you've been workable. And I would just want to say thank you. Thank you to the board. So thank you to all of you for your willingness. Thank you. Okay, let's move to our second public hearing this evening. And this is an action item, and this is the public hearing to consider increases in our wastewater utility rates and user fees and wastewater hookup fees. I appreciate Tom Points, you being here, and Jeff Barnes to walk us through this. Thank you very much.
Evening, Mayor, Council. So Jeff Barnes and myself are going to share this presentation. I'll kick it off, and then when we get to the numerical part of it, Jeff's going to jump in and explain some of the numbers, and I'll also give you an update where we're at with the construction at the plant. So Jeff's trying to get the slides up. They're all in your packet. So we're going to tell a little bit of a story here, just be brief, and this has been quite some time to try to get this all put together. It's been over 10 years of planning to get this plant upgraded. Some of the history here for you. Let's see if I can get this advanced. Here we go. So we had the wastewater rate increase, and we've been following the plan since 2018 of doing 16.75% every year to be able to fund the construction at the plant and pay back our bonds. And also another thing we're asking for tonight is the sewer hookup fee increase. And by the way, all of this has been gone through and approved by the Board of Appraisers. We've looked at this. These rate and hookup fee increases would go into effect on October 1st of this year, so the next fiscal year. So we're only looking at wastewater rate increases. We're not looking at water rate increases. We're able to use some of our ARPA dollars to offset that need. We do have our impact fee program up and running for all of our utilities. That's been a good thing. Jeff's going to share some of the numbers. We're starting to collect a decent amount in the wastewater and also the irrigation fund. We like to do planning to make sure that we're effectively and proactively doing the maintenance. And then all of our costs are based on a cost of service. So it's how much does it cost to provide the service divided by the number of people that we anticipate to come. And then we are continuing to look for grants. Jeff's going to tell you about another $3 million grant we got from the state from the Water Resource Board during his part. We started all this, like I said, about 10 years ago with all the planning, and then we negotiated with the EPA for a compliance schedule, which I'm pleased to announce that we're ahead of schedule on. So we had some deadlines in 2020, 2026 on our phosphorus, and then 2031 with our temperature. So we've already resolved the temperature by putting the water into Phyllis Canal instead of Indian Creek. Wastewater Advisory Committee, this was part of the planning process that I mentioned. It was a great group to get us started and go through options to get us here today. And we've already got some work done. So there was a phase one that was, did get an SRF loan for that. and then that's completed, and now the team's working on the 189 million Phase 2 for the final phosphorus and temperature. And we are ahead of schedule. So in 2018, we were looking to do a bond vote to help pay for all these millions of dollars of improvements. So as part of that bond vote, we asked, how would you like these rate increases to come in to pay for the construction itself and then pay back the loan? And the 16.75%, which we're asking for today, this is the last one that will be before you to ask this. And then there'll be one final one next year that's half of that, 8.28. So our total loan amount of the $200+ million project is $165 million. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So just a little bit about the progress. So this decade-long planning process and the funding, the bond and all that, well, now we're into the construction. So we're 65% done with the construction. We're pretty locked into this plan at this point. So just a quick, so the eastern side of the facility, again, the digester sludge transfer, I say the names of these buildings, most people don't know what we're talking about, but there are huge improvements gone out there. The blower building, 32% complete, and the aeration facility, which is huge if you go out there, is nearing completion. The middle of the site, the central facilities, the sludge handling facility, the RAS pumps, and then the secondary clarifier, just if you really want to know, that's the big circle at the bottom, is complete now. So it is online, and that's pretty exciting. Progress of the west facility, this is some of the highest tech wastewater improvements you will see. This is moving from right to left, sand filter into a UV filter, and then it's a clean water facility, and we'll pump that water out to the Phillips Canal and be able to reuse that water. It's the biggest reuse project in the state, and we're getting a lot of recognition for this portion of the project specifically. It's high tech. It's amazing. Additional funding, Tom mentioned this, that we've gotten for the pipeline project. We originally got a $3 million Water Smart grant. We just got another $3 million to help with that, and that just super timely on that project. If you remember, we came last winter with a little bit of overage on the second estimate we got on the recycled line, which kicked off that project. So that'll help supplement some of those costs. And then every year we get $1 million. We have $1 million now projected for utility, and not every year, in total in our impact fees. And that's a program Tom launched and is first in the state. So this is in your packet. There's a lot of detail. I'm not going to go through it, but it goes through our revenue, our expenses, and then that top green line is the fund balance. This next slide summarizes that, and you can see this from a little larger text on this slide. But if you'll notice, the importance of the improvement, or the importance of the 16.75% increases is sustaining the orange line there, and that's our fund balance. If anything, we have a city within a city down there. If you've gone, it's absolutely enormous. So if something goes down, for instance, one of the aeration basins, or we need a new blower building, it's like $10 million is really minimum for some of those bigger facilities. So we want to keep a $9 to a $15 million fund balance. And so the excellent planning that's gone on over the last decade, this continued support for the program is necessary to maintain that fund balance. So Tom mentioned this is the sixth year of the 16.75%, and we want to thank the council and the previous councils for supporting this effort. I feel like we're leading the way in the state on this large of a program. This is the remaining 16.75, then 8.28 is next year, and then from then on we're going to flatline those and more cost of living type increases. Each year we'll have to present that to the council, but the program is established. From then on, we're not going to be asking for these huge improvements because we got caught up with this Group F project. This gives a comparison of our fees based on other cities. Meridian, Caldwell, a little bit less. Nampa proposed is in total $76 a month. Boise goes up from there at $86.49. And then Greenleaf, and a challenge these smaller cities are facing is that they have these big wastewater costs and smaller population, so we'll probably be seeing more of those challenges out there. This is just what's in your packet on the rates itself, and this is the 16.75 across the board based on our rate schedule. I wanted to mention that there is impact fees have been collected. I mentioned that, Tom mentioned that, but that's that $1 million we have in there this year, and that's a great fund that'll grow and we can supplement the program. So the first portion is done now. That is the rate increase portion. Now we're going to move into the second action item, which is the hookup fees portion. And so there are 3 hookup fee options. And it's
Jeff, hold on a second.
Yes, sir.
Hang on just, so yes, Councilman.
I couldn't get it out. Thank you.
It's okay.
In your previous additional funding for recycle pipeline, you have $7 million there, right? So why do we need an increase of 15%?
What slide are you on, Councilman?
This is additional funding for recycle pipeline, $3 million for Water Smart grant awarded, $3 million from Idaho Water Resource Board. So I get it, I know the answer to this, but I want the community to know what is being used with that money and why we're asking them for another increase. Okay?
Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, the $6 million there goes towards a $180 million project. And when we originally started the project, the recycled line, they put an estimate in there and they moved forward without having solid numbers on that, just that recycled portion. So when we came back, it started out at about 14 million. When we were done, it was about 5 million higher than that, if you remember from when we went to council. So this $6 million bridges that funding gap so that we can stay on schedule and be within budget. And we really needed this extra 3 million too on top of that. So it's a small portion of the project, but it kept us on schedule with our budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, there's the hookup fees. There's 3 options, and I think we've discussed this in the past. The first one is the engineered news record option, and that was a little bit lower. It's 2.15%. These are different indexes, and we've had discussions on this. If you have questions, please let us know. This is the lowest index and based on construction costs. And the next one is the proposal based on the producer's price index, and this is what was recommended by the Board of Appraisers. So the producer's price index is what we would need to go and purchase engineering or a contractor to do a job. And it is was prior to this, it's an inflationary anticipation. So people use this, the Bureau, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics uses this, and it predicts inflation. It's one of the measures of that, or deflation. But that is the highest request, and again, the 12.55 was recommended to be used for the increase for the hookup fees. And then the third option is the 4.4%, and that is the consumer price index. And these have different standpoints they looked at. You look at from the index standpoint. This is more of a consumer household, what actual inflation a person would pay, whereas the PPI is what we would need to pay a contractor who's producing that work. So again, there's a lot into these rates if you get in there and start to study them, and you may have questions with those, but the recommendation from the Board of Appraisers was the PPI, and that was the 12.55%. Some more information in your packet there on all 3, and then these are the action items that I summarized, and these are in your packet. The first is the resolution for the wastewater utility rates and user fees, and again, that's 16.75 is what's proposed. The second is the wastewater user hookup fees, and I did put in the PPI index, but that's the decision of the council on what index to use. And with that, Tom and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Council, do you have questions?
Mayor,
Yes.
thank you for including both reports. I didn't heckle you on it this time. My question is, and I know that when this was put into place, it was just a standard for, I think, the 6 years, it was the same, and then it drops down. But with the growth that we're having, how come that 16.75 doesn't fluctuate with getting impact fees? Why are they not offsetting each other?
Mayor, Councilman Jangula, we did a cost of service study in 2017. And so they anticipated the growth that we've seen in the city and put that into the cost of service study, and that's all built into the 16.75%. So when right now we came to council, I think, was it last meeting when we proposed the new cost of service studies, because we're ready to update those now. But this section of this 5-year period was anticipated as part of that 2017 study. That's where they got the 16.75.
So that percent is based off the accumulative growth that was anticipated.
Yeah, they had a horizon year. They looked at Compass on future growth on the city, and they based that growth off the future numbers that were anticipated.
And that stayed accurate, fairly accurate over the course of this amount of years?
Okay, I believe so, but we can, yeah, do you have? Yeah, and I say that with that short of a window, I think we're really close, but I can get back and we can check and give you an exact.
Well, one thing I make comment is that when the census study took place, Compass actually had a population projected higher than it actually was. So if they were projecting numbers based on a population number, we actually could have been behind. Because when you have a higher population, it's spread around amongst more people. And we didn't achieve some of those population numbers actually based on their projections and where we were at the census. Our number of population was less than that. So I would anticipate it not to be less because of the growth, because the projection was actually exceeded what our actual growth was, if that makes sense.
If we were to increase the hookup fees more than what's proposed there, would we be able to offset that 16.75? Could we shift that?
Mayor, City Council, so the rates are paying for the improvements and our additional growth. Yeah, the hookup fees is that growth element, growth paying for their share of growth. So it's, yeah. Do you want?
Right. Thank you, Tom.
So there's a court case on how the hookup fees are set in Idaho, and we have to very specifically follow that. And so we did check with legal that it's okay to use some sort of known cost increase number, which is the PPI, and but we wouldn't want to do something that's not based on some sort of known number, because that could open us up a little bit, I would believe, on that hookup fee. So, and another thing to know, that when we talked about the hookup fee and these increases, if somehow we're too low or just right, or maybe slightly higher, whenever we do a cost of service study, which was approved at the last council, we can true up that number and just change it to what it should be in the cost of service study.
Have you ever seen rates go down after they've been raised?
I haven't, since I've been here, because I haven't, every time the city's growing like crazy every year, which is driving the cost of things up. So some of the question about the grants and the impact fees, so that $3 million that we got from WaterSmart basically got ate up by inflationary costs. So we weren't able to do anything to lower the rates. The $3 million that was for the Water Resource Board money, it's just a portion of that is going to the pipeline, maybe 500,000. There's another project on the water storage that we've committed to build on the irrigation side. And then the $1 million in impact fees, we are committed to, which we have come to council and talk about getting the gravity line along U-Stick out to State Highway 16, and that is an impact fee project as well, and that's mainly what we're focused on spending those funds towards, not at the wastewater plant at this time.
Last question. You said that Idaho has regulations on how much of the impact fees can be used for this. What is that cap?
Tom, do you want
for the hookup fees?
me to? So
go ahead,
impact
Daniel.
fees are hookup fees. So the impact fees can only be used for growth-related construction. So if we are increasing capacity at the plant, and it's in our capital improvement plan, it can be done for that. It can't be used to replace existing infrastructure on the impact fees. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, so just to clarify then, so it's not a set percentage, it's just based off whatever the project is, it's an X amount of dollars.
That's correct. How you build an impact fee is you determine how many projects you want to build in that 10-year period, and that's how you develop your capital improvement plan. And so we have these gravity lines for the sewer, and we've got some capacity at the plant in our plan. So you figure out what the value of that is, and then divide by the number of users you anticipate during that period, and that's how you come up with the fee. So when we came up with the impact fee, we tried to look at, this seems very reasonable that you could do this in 10 years, but we didn't want to extend it too much past that. Since Jeff mentioned we're the first in Idaho to do this, we wanted to make sure that we weren't doing something that could potentially open up the city on a liability there. So at some point, we will add some more projects on this, and it may increase the fee at this point, but we didn't want to increase the impact fee until we had at least a year, maybe two, under our belt on having this program in place. Yeah.
Tom, thank you for answering those questions, and Jeff and Daniel. Any other questions at this time? Okay. If there are none, thank you, Jeff. We'll have you back to do a brief close if needed. So this is a public hearing. And Shar, where are we?
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone signed up.
Okay. I just want to confirm, Hubert, you're on the next one, is that correct? You did not want to testify on this one? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify on this particular public hearing? Okay, seeing no one and no one online. Okay, with that, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. What is the will of the council, and do you have any questions for Jeff Barnes?
Mayor.
Yes.
Quick question for Jeff. I know it's the best guess, but plant capacity going forward after these improvements are made, what population is it being designed to be able to accommodate?
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, the total capacity is 21 million gallons a day. We're currently at 12 million gallons a day.
So double the size of the population base?
Yeah, and I don't have the number in front of me, but I can definitely get back to you, but it's approximately, about that, maybe a little less.
And some of that is for industry, right?
Yes, that's the best
Industry
guess.
and residential.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, what is the will of the council?
Madam Mayor?
Yep.
We have two action items. Do you want to have them in one motion, or?
I would do them as two separate motions, please.
Okay. For the first one, it's authorized the mayor to sign a resolution implementing FY24 increases in the service fees charged by the city of Nampa for wastewater utility rates and user fees effective October 1, 2023.
And the amount of?
The amount of?
16.75%.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Angula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay. Do you want to do the second motion?
Sure. Authorize the mayor to sign a resolution implementing FY24 increases in service fees charged by the city of Nampa for wastewater utility rates and user hookup fees using PPI index effective October 1, 2023.
Second. Should include the amount, since it's not in there, of 12.55%.
12.55%.
Okay,
I'll second that.
thank you.
Did you
Discussion.
Did you say CPI or PPI?
PPI.
PPI? The PPI was? Okay.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Brunner.
Yes.
Angula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. Jeff and Tom, thank you for your work. I tell you what, it's a lot of work. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay. If, council, do we need a quick break, or are you good?
I already took one.
What's that? Yeah. Let's do a quick 5-minute bathroom break. We're going to try to be fast, and so we'll do it right now. Thank you.
Me too.
All righty, so we are ready to move forward with action item 8.3 on the agenda. This is annexation and zoning to limited multifamily residential and a subdivision preliminary plat approval for the Wilson Landing subdivision located at 0 Wilson Lane. This is for Becky. Hedda Dura representing Wilson Landing. And I'll let you say, Becky, are you presenting? Okay, thank you. I'll let you introduce yourself and say your last name, and I'm so sorry. So, and the original concept is 30 single-family attached lots and 2 common lots. So our applicant is Becky. Becky, come on forward. And how do you say your last name, Becky?
Yeah, Becky Izagiri. My address is 2471 South Titanium Place, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. All right. So good evening. I'm excited to present a wonderful townhouse project called Wilson Landing. Wilson Landing is located on Wilson Lane, just southeast of Southside Boulevard in Nampa, Idaho. This is an excellent location for multifamily development as it is located directly adjacent to a new senior living facility to the west and single family to the south. This location offers quick access to entertainment, shopping, and more while maintaining that secluded, peaceful atmosphere. The yellow boxes highlight all the amenities and businesses in the area that will significantly benefit from this development. We are seeking approval for annexation and rezone to RML. This project will consist of 30 individually sold attached townhouse lots and 2 common lots with 15.5% usable open space. The gross density for this project is 8.2 units per acre. Each townhouse will feature a 2-car garage with a 2-car driveway. 15 additional parking spaces will be provided for visitors. The 3.74 acre property is currently located in Canyon County and is considered enclaved, meaning it is surrounded by the city limits and considered infill within the Nampa area of impact. This map is from the Canyon County Assessor's website. You can clearly see that the city of Nampa surrounds the subject property, and growth is sure to happen in this area. It makes sense to expand to areas that are appropriate for development and save our farmlands on the fringe of the city. So also having a mix of housing types will bring a variety of demographics to this area, creating a robust, diverse community that will be able to support itself for decades to come. The 2040 Nampa Comprehensive Plan designates this area, mixes high density and low density and industrial. This project plans to extend the high density designation to our site from the west. The RML zoning designation does limit the height and lot size, making this a great transitional zone. Innovative housing options, like townhouses, are very desirable housing type. Not only are townhouses often more affordable, making homeownership accessible to a broader audience, but they can also elevate property values in single-family residential neighborhoods through fresh construction. Additionally, introducing a diverse housing scheme in areas dominated by singular housing type enriches the community's fabric. Furthermore, focusing on infill development is paramount as it signifies a more structured and orderly city expansion, prioritizing central development over continuous growth of city limits. This development will enhance the quality and character of the surrounding area by incorporating articulation and visual interest in the exteriors via porches, balconies, pop-outs, and various material types. Each townhome will be individually platted, sold separately, and governed by an HOA and CC&Rs. These homes will be sold at market value, creating homes for teachers, nurses, and many others who deserve homes but can't because they've been priced out of the market. The first floor will have a 2-car garage, living room, kitchen, half bath, and a laundry room. The second floor will have 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a balcony off the master. The landscaping for this development will consist of water-wise plants and trees specifically selected for the Idaho climate. These plants require less water to maintain, making them a sustainable choice. The 15.5% usable open space will include a community gathering area with a pergola and picnic tables where folks can gather and celebrate birthdays or just eat dinner outside. To ensure privacy, a perimeter fence will be located around the property. We'll work with the adjacent neighbors to add any additional screening, plant screening, if necessary. The utilities for this development will come from the Auden Lease subdivision to the west. All the stormwater will be contained on site. We are also planning to make full frontage improvements along Wilson Lane, adding onto the sidewalk that will be built within the Autumn Leaf subdivision. We will also conduct a turn lane analysis of Wilson and Southside and abide by any recommendations and improvements as conditioned by planning and zoning. The improvements that will likely be required by this turn lane analysis will ease traffic concerns and make this intersection a lot safer. Plus, these improvements will be funded by the developer, not the city. In conclusion, this project will help diversify the housing in this area and create a more housing options for those looking to buy in the city of Nampa. There's a housing shortage in this valley, and we ask that you think about the future needs of this community and the young people you might be affecting. We really hope that we can make this project a part of the Nampa community. I'll stand for questions.
Becky, thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it. Council, do you have any questions at this time? So Becky, I don't know that you've been before us before, but you probably know the process, right? So we will have you back at the conclusion of the public hearing.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Christy Watkins, thank you for providing our staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. As stated, the request before you this evening is for annexation and zoning of 3.74 acres to RML for the construction of 30 attached single-family townhouses in 5 separate buildings in the Wilson Landing subdivision. So the surrounding zoning of this property, it is Canyon County enclaved on the north, south, and east sides. It is contiguous to the city limits on the west, where there is RML zoning and is currently being constructed as the Autumn Leaf Senior Living Development that is all 4-plex structures. We did have a pre-application meeting on this project in August of 2022, and in August of 2023, P&Z recommended approval. The city's sewer and water systems have adequate capacity to serve this project, and there are utilities in Wilson Lane. As far as traffic is concerned, this project does not meet the threshold for requiring a traffic impact study. It has been identified to widen Southside Boulevard to 5 lanes in the CIP between the years 2030 to 2036, so it hasn't quite reached capacity at this point. The total traffic impact fee for build-out based on the current rate could be $105,000. There's no additional public right-of-way required at this time. The full frontage road improvements will be required along Wilson Lane. And Planning and Zoning did recommend that we add a condition that they obtain a turn lane analysis for Wilson and Southside and abide by any recommended improvements that are found. And I did add that as a condition of approval in red in your staff report. We did receive some public input on this, comments regarding high density, traffic, strain on the water resources, aesthetics, property values, and quality of life. Building is going to require that they go through a CPR meeting for these attached unit structures because being at 6 units, they do become a commercial building permit. Nampa Meridian Irrigation District has some agreement requirements for the Langdon lateral. The Nampa Fire District states that it is 2 miles from Fire Station 2 with a 6-minute response time, and there's a slight increase needed for firefighter positions. They anticipate collecting impact fees for the fire district at about $47,000. The engineering division has provided their comments on the plat, traffic, access, utilities, drainage, irrigation, and they have listed their conditions that are shown in your staff report. So the proposed annexation is located on a property that is designated as part of the light industrial area and part low density residential. However, since it is adjacent to high density residential to the west, we do allow a stretch onto one adjacent parcel. Therefore, this project will be evaluated under the guidance for the high-density residential designation, which is the 8+ dwelling units for multifamily. There are a number of guiding principles found in the comprehensive plan that are outlined as fact in your staff report. A few being defined density, smart growth principles, building design, housing affordability, and the need to provide housing opportunities, as she stated. The comprehensive plan also defines compatibility for residential areas and infill. All the guiding principles outlined in the comprehensive plan are found by staff to be met by this project. The current zoning code promotes transition zoning from medium density residential to high density residential through that RML zoning that limits the height and lot sizes per structure. The project proposes a single-family attached unit in 6-plex style structures. This is a desirable housing type because it promotes homeownership while limiting expensive maintenance and lowering individual taxes and creating options for new homeownership. The project has been reviewed under Chapter 11 guidance for the RML district. This zoning district is permitted in this designation for the comprehensive plan. Homes built in this development will match the area in standard building construction, pitched roofs, garages, and yard areas with trees and landscaping. According to the RML zone, when we look at the preliminary plat, the lots cannot be smaller than 10,400 square feet for a 6-unit structure in the RML zone. The smallest base lot proposed is 15,000, and then it will be split accordingly into 6 units. And it cannot be larger than 21,000 square feet for a 6-unit structure. The largest base lot is proposed at 15,483, and then will be split accordingly into those 6 units. And the number of common lots equals 2, and the number of buildable residential lots equals 30, which creates a gross density of 8.08, which falls within the 8+ dwelling units per acre. As a matter of fact, it's at the very bottom end of that. The 6-unit multifamily structures will be subject to design review. This project proposes dwellings that reflect the single-family style with 2-car garages and peaked roofs with the main entry door under a porch-style roof. A landscape plan was reviewed by the city forester, and a note was made that 2 trees will be required per unit once the yards are installed. And then, as she described, they have right at 15% open space, which is 0.58 acres, and they will be including open gathering space, a pergola, and picnic tables. So for annexation, there are 2 basic criteria. One is that the private landowners have been consented, and that is a fact. The property shall be contiguous to the city limits, and it is contiguous on the south, so that is also a fact. So staff can reasonably recommend to the council that the project be approved for annexation. As far as zoning is concerned, there are 5 laws. One is that the zoning is in harmony with the comprehensive plan future land use map, which staff has found that it is. That the zoning is compatible with surrounding zoning. Staff has found that it is. And that the use is compatible with the surrounding area, and with the Autumn Leaf subdivision to the west, it is compatible with their neighbors. The other criteria, it needs to be available for orderly development of the city, and it is in the interest of the public and reasonably necessary. I believe by having services available to the property, and then by looking at the comprehensive plan future land use goals, both of those have been met. These are the recommended conditions of approval, with the addition of the planning and zoning recommended condition for the turn lane analysis. And these are your potential motions. I will stand for any questions.
Christy, thank you so much. Council, do you have any questions? Councilman Haverfield.
Christy, this is a townhouse development, correct?
Correct.
So there'll be 2-hour firewalls between the units?
Correct.
So this would be a residential development, not a commercial development?
Oh, I'm sorry, you are correct. That's true.
Okay. So as a residential development, the additional parking requirement, does it apply or not apply?
This was submitted prior to our adoption of that additional requirement, but they will have 2-car garages plus a 2-car space on the parking pad in front of the garage,
Tandem.
and then they have an additional parking area right when you pull into the subdivision.
So each home would have a 2-car garage, and then parking at least a 20-foot wide or deep parking driveway in front of it.
So 4 for each.
So 4, okay. And then you did say that there's 2 trees required per unit?
Mhm.
How are they going to accommodate that? What are the width of these lots, do you know?
I'm going to kind of let Doug review the landscape plan in accordance with that. If they need to put it in the backyard, they can do that. It
So
doesn't
they can
have to
put
be
one in the
front.
front and one in the back?
Mhm.
Can they share, or split a property line with 2 trees to accommodate it? Because it's going to be awfully tight with all those driveways.
He sometimes also will work with them to do like street lining, so or even put it in the common area if they can't fit it. But he will work out the formula as far as how many units there are and how many trees would be required for the development itself. And then if they can't fit them on the lot, he'll find another place for them to go.
Okay. And then this isn't a preliminary plat tonight, it's just conceptual as well?
No, this is a preliminary plat
preliminary
for the
plat.
Wilson Landing subdivision.
So can you tell me what the front and rear setbacks are required to be?
So front for the parking area is 20.
Okay.
For the living space is 15. And currently, right now, the project was submitted under the current code, which is 5 feet in the rear.
So again, I don't know how we put a tree back there and expect it to live, unless it's a bonsai tree. I mean, they
Well,
can-
I don't think they're built clear back to that 5-foot setback. I think they have backyards.
Okay, so that's a clarification I need as far as how much actual distance is there between the rear property line and the rear of the house.
Okay.
to
So
accommodate
code
the-
states 5 feet. I don't know what they're proposing as far as a building envelope.
Do we need to indicate that in a development agreement? If they're going to have to be required to have 2 trees, unless they're going to put it on the building itself somehow, I don't know how they're going to accommodate that if they build to the property line. Anyway, I guess if someone else is to answer that question, if Doug, is he here?
He's not here.
Okay. So that'd be my concern.
Yeah, and if they need to move it to another location in the open space, at least we'd have the same number of trees required.
Thank you, Christie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did the parking, did that meet is it .5? Is that what our code is?
That's what we changed it to in June.
So this meets that with 30 units and 15 additional parking spaces?
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Christie? Thank you, Christie.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and we do have some people signed up to testify.
Madam Mayor, our first speaker is Hubert Osborne.
Good evening, Hubert.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's always a privilege to address you. My wife and I, my name's Hubert Osborne. My wife and I reside at 4199 East Schwitzer Way. I'm not directly adjacent to the property. I live about 1 mile directly south, but I consider southeast Nampa my stomping grounds. As we all age, sometimes mobility becomes a problem. If I were to buy or rent in this proposed development, is it handicap accessible? And I would ask the city attorney to say whether the city code addresses that or not.
Madam Mayor, building code, I think, applies. I don't know, Hubert, the extent of the ADA provisions in building code. Randy might.
So we will provide that answer at the conclusion of public hearing, and Daniel has an answer. So we'll provide that. We'll go ahead and take your questions, and then we'll come back.
Mayor, I can
So-
answer the question. ADA compliance is for the access to each of the units. Since it's a townhouse development, it's not a commercial development, it's residential, so it'd be the same as any single-family development that you'd see. So all of the sidewalks have to be ADA compliant outside.
But to actually get in the house, I will have to carry my handicapped wife across the threshold.
In this one, yes, you would have to. It could be above 3/4 of an inch as far as the threshold.
You realize I'm not the horse I used to be?
You're still a strong man in my eyes, Hubert.
There are a number of other things that I think are wrong with this development, besides my being denied access. It's a postage stamp for a recreation area. There are no pathways. There are no parks. And what if I have a dog? That's not a very big recreation area to take care of my dog. So we've heard that voting has ADA requirements from the Secretary of State. We've heard that transportation ramps in downtown Nampa are important, and you guys spend a lot of money on those. Commercial access is good. Everybody has it. It's required. So I would ask you are all of these things more important than having access to a single-family home or a townhouse? It's diversity is used a number of times in these arguments. I say what you have now is discrimination, and I don't really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Hubert. Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Dwayne Sweet.
Surprise me. My name is Dwayne Sweet. I live at 3219 Wilson Lane, and I am totally against this. I've been down here several times, and the senior living's really nice because it's right across the street, so when I sell my house, I can just move right across, but I wasn't in favor of that either. And this is a mess. I mean, I have to back into my driveway to get out onto Wilson so I don't get hit. People, it's posted for 20, and it is city limits, but it is not. My neighbors don't realize that 20 means 20. Another problem that I have with this is that they say, oh, it's got a garage for 2 cars. Well, that's great, but there's 30 units, so that means there's 60 more cars a day minimum leaving or coming. And Wilson, I live right on the corner right there, and traffic is not fun to begin with. And the other problem I have with this is with the senior development plan that's straight across the street, they have 2 entrances. One's an emergency entrance out onto Wilson, and this one is landlocked. This worries me, and I've gone to the meetings, and I've told them that they need to get out a different way. Go down to Dorothy, get an easement to Dorothy, or do whatever they need to do, but they don't seem like they're amenable to that. So, but anyway, we don't need more townhouses in our neighborhood. We really don't. They built townhouses right down the street, and we've got the senior living right there close to us. And they talk about diversity. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but we've been fighting for single-family dwellings the whole time, and I've lived here for 17 years this time. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone else signed up.
Hi. Go ahead and come forward and give us your name. I'm sorry, excuse me. I see a hand. And then do you also want to testify? Okay, so we have 2 more people.
Sign up when I got here.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, go ahead and give us your name and address. Thank you.
My name is Darren Craze, and I live at 3315 Caden Lane. And I just wanted to reiterate we were here for the August 15th Planning and Zoning meeting, and the Planning and Zoning Board members made comments that, wow, this is a large crowd in attendance. We're not used to this big a crowd. The majority of the people here were for this project. After we made our testimony, they asked the question, boy, isn't anyone here in favor? Not one. It was 100% of that crowd that was here opposed. We all have almost half-acre properties, which is from Wilson Lane south. We have hundreds of townhomes in and under construction right now based on the ones that are off of the corner on South Side, the apartments on Greenhurst and South Side, and the senior complex that they just talked about, which is very high density. There's not much room in between those buildings. The comment was also made by one of the members of Planning and Zoning that they didn't feel this was a good fit for the neighborhood because of those low-density lots with Triple Crown that goes through Wilson, and also the Wilson Estates all being almost half-acre properties. The diversity thing, you know, they've beat that to death. They've made the comment for this project that it's in relation to all of the things that you can do in Nampa. There are no sidewalks. The improvement on the front of this, I believe, was 54 or 56 feet of sidewalk. That's not much of an improvement as far as what we want to say is improvement for Nampa residents. But the speed trailer was put up 2 days after that meeting on Wilson Lane, and where the speed limit gun on it, and it tells you how fast you're coming in. That's not proactive. That's, let's go see if we can pacify the residents because so many people cut through. And as mentioned, there's no egress for this. It's a very tight, again, it's infill, but you made the comment earlier on a couple of the other projects that you want to make residents of Nampa happy, and this is just shoving stuff down our throats. And it's really not a good fit for the neighborhood. It's very poor planning. It doesn't help anyone. We are absolutely opposed. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Vince Lavarante, 4172 East Switzer Way. I live about a mile south of this project. I was at the planning and zoning meeting, and I anticipated a room full of residents that were here during that meeting in opposition. So could it be that the holiday threw them off and they didn't realize that the meeting was tonight instead of, couldn't be last night? I can't believe that there's nobody here. And the gentleman that just spoke, it was 100% opposition to the project. And I am opposed to it for several reasons. One, it is larger homes, older style, and this is not a fit for that area. I've been to several previous meetings where the proposed subdivisions were rejected because it wasn't a fit. And this is a candidate for not being a fit. And, you know, Patrick was here, and you praised him for how well he worked with the neighbors and worked together to come to some compromise. Well, what I saw at the planning and zoning meeting was just the opposite. There were 45 people here opposed to it, and all the members on the board approved it. It's like they didn't even listen to the people. And a major concern is the traffic. If you look at Greenhurst and Southside right now, it is so much traffic there. And I need to admit that I took a shortcut through some subdivisions to get here because the traffic is so bad there. And the apartments that are being built right now on the south side of Greenhurst aren't even open yet. So we do not see the impact now of what it's going to be once those apartments open. And then now you have an additional 60 cars dumping onto a narrow street. So really, it's, yeah, and there was one more important thing. Oh, and then the other thing is, it's only one entrance, no other way out. And I thought there was some kind of fire regulation on a street that if it's a certain length, there has to be more than one, in and out. This is only one in and out, and they're all dumping onto Wilson. So anyway, so I'm speaking in behalf of the people that probably don't realize that they should have been here, the ones that were here at the Planning and Zoning, but also on my behalf of the impact of the traffic in the area. So, thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that had intended to testify this evening? Okay, seeing no one. I guess before we have the applicant come back, there was a comment regarding the fire regulations. And I know there is a comment in the staff report. And so I guess, Daniel, do you have any feedback or comment?
Mayor, generally speaking, the requirement in the fire code is that for anything more than 29 units of single-family residential, they need a secondary access. Counting the, I did a quick count, and it looked to me that the plat had 29, but I know it's listed as 30, so I may be looking at the wrong version, or that may have been modified since then. But that's generally the fire code requirement in this situation.
Mayor?
Thank you. Yes?
Daniel, that is on page 572. I'm just looking at it right now, so just so you can reference that. So it does say that it's 30 townhome lots, and then it does talk about that. But I did want some clarity on that because the verbiage it's not very clear to me, so I'm not sure if it meets it or doesn't meet it.
So we may want to clarify with the applicant the full number of residential units and which ones are residential units versus common lots, just so that you're getting that information directly from the applicant. That is the regulation, though, is 29. Anything more than 29 units needs a secondary access.
Mayor, did we get an answer on Hubert's question, or is it this?
So I would agree with Councilman Haverfield. These would fall under the International Residential Code. The International Residential Code does not require ADA compliance, though anyone building a home can certainly request modifications to have it built to ADA compliance, but there is no code requirement that it does that. I would also say that if I'm remembering state code correctly, there is legislation that does not allow us to be any more stringent than the adopted state building codes. So that would not be something we would be able to legislate and require.
Thanks.
Yes.
Need to turn mine on. In looking at this development, Wilson Way, the improved road section is how wide? If this is a preliminary plat?
Let me find that here in the plat. So the roadway width is one of our smaller roadway designs for right-of-way. We have multiple roadway widths allowed in the design manual that's been adopted through council. In this case, it looks like it's a 47-foot right-of-way, which would be allowed in this situation with the number of lots that they're proposing and this being an infill development.
47 feet right-of-way?
That's what it appears to be.
Okay, so the sidewalk that's proposed would be within that right-of-way?
Yes, the sidewalk and curb gutter and everything would still be within that right-of-way, and it is one of our approved street sections.
Okay, so to Hubert's point, as far as ADA compliance, the sidewalks would have to meet ADA compliance.
Correct.
The dwelling units themselves, since they're residential in nature, subject to the IRC, they would not have to be handicap accessible. But the pathway in the development to the main thoroughfare would have to be ADA compliant.
Correct.
Okay. So the 20 foots, what I'm looking then at is within the 47-foot right-of-way, there's sidewalk of 5 foot wide on both sides. That's in the right-of-way, so that from the property line, they can accommodate the 20 feet and still have the 5 feet of sidewalk before they hit the roadway section.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So, Councilman Haverfield, you were talking about the trees, but every design I see here, because we are approving a preliminary plat, and every design I see does not show, it shows trees, but none of the trees are with the lots. They're all around the turnaround and in the open green space. I don't see any trees.
Mayor.
So, yes.
So that is the subdivision landscape plan, and so that's showing the required landscaping for the common lots as required by code. The landscape plans do not specifically show the trees on the individual residential lots.
Okay, so if they're required, they have to be on there, correct?
No, those in the common areas that will be dictated by code are shown in there. Those dictated by code in the individual residential lots are not shown on that plan.
Right, but they will be required.
They
is
will
what
be
my
required,
point is,
yes.
that even though we're not seeing them on here, if we approve the preliminary plat or not, I'm not saying we're going to, I just want to make sure that it,
We require them upon final occupancy of the structure.
okay. Thank you.
So Mayor, on page 565, those aren't trees that are, those little small ones in between the townhouses? And it'd be in the back areas, in the rear areas?
Yeah, it's just the subdivision required landscaping.
So those are the renderings you're talking about?
Oh, yeah, I'm just looking at a rendering. I realize it's not necessarily where they would be, but those.
Those appear to be shrubs in the backyard with trees on the ends.
I mean, I see the big trees, so those are not small trees there that are yet, okay. All right, bonsai.
So I have a question, Christy, regarding connectivity to pathways. Because I know one of our goals in development is that there's connectivity to some pathways or something. And so here, it really, it doesn't appear that there is any connectivity to anything other than out to Wilson Lane or whatever that is right there, Wilson Lane. And then when we talked about compatibility, I noticed that both the north and the east side of this is all, well, it's industrial to the north, it appears, but it's all open. This is just, and then you've got almost some county parcels, and then as you go further, it is much larger residential. So when we talk about that, I see the compatibility on one side, but the rest that there isn't compatibility. How do you take that into consideration when you make?
So this is, Mayor, this is all vacant land that is open for development. If we had to be compatible with the large lots across the board, that's all we would ever end up with is large lots across the board. So we have to have these transition zones. Everything you see here that's striped is in the county. So they may come in for annexation and develop out according to the comp plan, which could be the same type of housing that we're talking about tonight. It could be single-family homes. It could be industrial.
Can you remind me where our comp plan originally had this?
Yes, I can go back to that. Oops, that's it right there. So this piece of property is low density down here in the flagpole section. That's the access to the property. And then up here is industrial. Next to it, immediately adjacent, is the high density residential, which they've chosen to stretch onto that parcel. We do allow that.
Instead of industrial? Yes. Okay.
With this being so far away from the railroad tracks, I'm not sure which would be better on Wilson, to have industrial traffic or residential traffic.
Thank you for showing that. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay. Council, do you have any other questions before we have the applicant come back? Because needless to say, applicant gets the last word, so we've had a lot of questions for staff before. Yes?
So Christie, can you answer yet in looking at the preliminary, what I assume is the preliminary plat, there appears to be a footprint of how the units would sit in there, what the rear yard setback is to the buildable portion of those lots. Is it 10 feet?
Councilman Haverfield, I don't have the dimensions right in front of me, so maybe Becky can answer that question for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mayor, Becky will also answer then on the egress question, as far as another egress, okay, with 30 units. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And Councilman Rodriguez?
Thank you. Christie, can you answer, does this subdivision have their own wells or city water?
They will be on city water.
No, the ones that are already there.
Oh, the county subs?
Yes.
The county sub to the south? I don't know what
They
their
are on,
arrangement
they were
is.
developed in the county and are on well and septic.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Becky, as our applicant, would you like to come up and give some closing comments?
All right. So I'm going to address the kind of the first questions here. So the rear setback for that is 12 feet. Yep. So with the pad there, the building pad, it's 12 feet. And yes, trees will go in the front yards. I think
It appears that the lots are about 26 feet wide, so if you had a 20-foot wide driveway, you'd have about a 6-foot planter area up to the sidewalk, which would need to be uninterrupted. So there is space there. It's just
yeah, you could do a
limited.
column or tree. Yeah, for sure. And Chrissy, if I could go back to my PowerPoint, better. And then as far as the handicap accessibility, excuse me, we will be required to meet all handicap ADA compliant standards, pathways, sidewalks, and as far as the home itself, it can be retrofitted. We're just going to build it to standard code, and then whatever the individual homeowner's needs are, they can retrofit it to what their needs may be. So as far as the fire requirements with the 29 versus the 30 lots, we sat down with fire and we had a conversation with them, showed them this layout, and they were completely fine with it. But if it has to be 29 lots, we can get rid of a lot, maybe. Yeah, to me, I mean, we'll beat a fire code. We want to meet fire code. And so if it's 29, that's definitely fine. There will actually be also a secondary access. Let me see if I can find the... Eventually, we'll have an access point in the Autumn Leaf subdivision. So homeowners could kind of go out and around if they wanted to go through the Autumn Leaf sub. So that would be a point in the future, another access point. Let's see, so as far as this development, we do feel like this development is compatible with the surrounding area. It will add new construction to the area, increasing property values. It will also revitalize the area. New construction always does that. It'll bring in a new set of homeownership to the area, create some vibrancy, and as far as connectivity goes, there's really nowhere to connect. I'm not sure where to put a pathway or where the city would want a pathway. And then as far as the gentleman had kind of talked about getting a easement through the property kind of directly north, we have had those conversations. Obviously, we don't own the property to the north, so we can't put an easement on their property to get access. But we did have the conversation, and the road also to the north, I believe, is a private drive. So that's the option is eliminated based on that. We do believe that this is a good fit, and we would like to make this a part of the Nampa community. I'll stand for questions.
Okay, I realize I have one other question, and that is the storm drain that I see, the storm, not drain, but the storm water retention area?
Yes.
Is that included in your 15% open green space, or is that separate?
That's separate.
It is separate,
Yes.
so it's not included in the
No.
15%?
We can't count those per code, right? Yep.
Well, that's what I was thinking, so I just wanted to make sure. And then I think there was a really good point regarding, in an environment like this, having a dog park, a place for, if you're looking for younger families to start having a place for kids to play, I know the amenities that I think you said you would do, but having a place for dogs, right? A little dog park, where do they go to the bathroom? I'm not sure where they would go to the bathroom.
Take them to Darrell's house.
Yeah, so for people that have pets, I'm not sure what they would do.
Yes. So there is a dog park just north of the development. Here, it's actually a pretty nice dog park.
Are you talking about Nampa's dog park?
Yeah.
Right, but the people that live there, like when you get up in the morning and the dog needs to go out?
Sure.
Yeah, you're not taking him to a dog park. So what are they doing there?
Sure. So it'll have like a nice little grassy area in the back. They'll have a nice little backyard.
They will?
Okay. Yeah, a little fenced area. So you can see here, there's little partitions there that will separate. So there will be areas for dogs to play or pets to go outside and relieve themselves. Same with the front yard. There would be space for that.
Okay. Is this picture on my left with the garage doors, is that considered the front yard? What is that?
That's the front.
Yeah, so that's just a rendering of kind of what the client had envisioned. So you can kind of see that there will be spaces here for a tree on each side of the building, the sixplex buildings.
Okay.
And then little trees in between the two. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for answering my questions. Council, do you have any other questions?
Madam Mayor, I have a
Yes.
question. Becky, do you have enough property on the frontage of Wilson there to have a right-in, right-out turn lane?
I defer that into engineering.
Councilman Reynolds, are you meaning from their road coming out onto Wilson Lane?
Yes.
So you would be looking at 3 lanes, a right, a left, and an in. I would say that with the volume of homes that is here, that is not something that we would feel is warranted for a 30-home development.
We will be required to do a turn lane analysis on Wilson and Southside, and we'll need to comply with any standards, set forth in that turn lane analysis, which would then help the community out.
Darrell likes roundabouts, Randy likes stop signs, and I like turn lanes.
Totally.
So, Mayor, if I may, Becky, what's the square footage on these then? Living square footage? No, I'm not concerned about the garage, living
Yeah.
square footage.
Yep, so it'll be about 1,600 square feet.
1,600.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I know you always, the developer always wants to put in as many units as possible, as far as cost effective. Has anyone penciled what your minimum amount to make this work is? I'm supposed to be asking questions rather than making a comment, but I'm concerned about the density here.
That I don't know. I don't know what that cost would be.
So another question, are these individually for sale?
Yes.
Or are these rentals?
Yes.
So what will the price point be?
They'll be at market value. So market value for a townhouse lot is about anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000. 100.
100,000, right, between three.
I'm
Yeah,
buying it.
sorry. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
3,500,000, yes.
thank you. Okay,
Good investment.
so council, are there any other questions for our applicant? We're sure? Okay, Becky, any closing comment as we're done?
I just really hope we can make this part of the community. We do need affordable housing. People like myself have a hard time affording a house these days, and it would be nice to be able to. Yeah, we just ask for your approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, with that, council, if there are no other questions for the applicant, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is an opportunity for council to discuss their actions or their
Frankly,
suggested actions, yes.
I guess I'll start off first. I think the one thing that, there's a couple of issues that I have here. Number one, I'm going to go back to Hubert's statement about ADA compliance. And according to fellow council, because it's residential, they don't have to be ADA compliant. Is that correct? Okay. However, what it does, it restricts those who are physically handicapped, impaired. So, in a way, it is a discrimination issue. I have a problem with that as well. The other thing is the high density in a medium density area. The homeowners previously had said that they're concerned with traffic, aesthetics, property values, and quality of life. But I think more than anything, it's a matter of high density and amenities. And also, I really wonder about the entry and exit. I'm really concerned with that. And unless there's a different approach, boy, this doesn't fit for me on those issues that I've just brought up. There. You're welcome.
Mayor, really quick, is there ever a development that requires ADA compliant though? Because we can't force that on anyone.
No,
People can
no.
choose where they want to live.
It was
and
brought up.
if they
That's
can't, you know, I mean, sidewalks and parking, sure, but I mean, as far as homes, no.
I can answer the question.
Thank you, Councilman
Since
Haverhill.
it's townhouses, there's 2-hour firewall separations between each of the units. So it's basically a property line, even though they're building up to the property line. That's what's considered a residential, single ownership opportunity. If they weren't, if there are 1-hour separation walls between them, it'd be a condo or an apartment project, which would be required to meet HUD standards, which is the Fair Housing Act. This, since they're individual ownerships, individual lots, in a sense, they don't have to, they're not commercial in nature, they don't have to meet that requirement. Although the development itself, the site, has to be designed to meet ADA requirements for accessibility outside up to each of those units. So that's the requirement there. But inside the units, no. That would be a HUD requirement if they were apartments or condos. Does that make sense?
What do you mean by the 1-hour separation wall? What does that
A
mean?
firewall separating, if you're going to build to your property line, you have to have a firewall separation. If it's just a 1-hour separation, that means that the sixplex would be one building with just a 1-hour separation between the living units, so they'd have to sprinkle the building. The fact that these are 2-hour firewalls, they don't have to sprinkle the buildings either.
Yes,
Thank you. Okay, other comments?
I have one more, Mayor. So since it is 30, Daniel, does that mean that we would need to require an additional exit entrance?
Mayor and Councilman Jangila, I would recommend that if you were inclined to approve, that you might condition that they comply with the fire code for their number of accesses for their units, and then ultimately that fire code, the fire department would make that determination. And as the applicant said, they are working on a secondary access, likely an emergency access to the Autumn Leaf Senior Apartments. And if that were the case, that would take care of that issue, and they'd be able to do the 3, and they'd be compliant with that code.
So fire would decide at the time if it's compliant or not. They can make that adjustment. It's not in our code that they have to.
Right, that is a fire code, not a city code. We can deal with that with the final plat application and verify compliance that they either have an emergency access to provide that secondary access, or they've dropped down to 29 units.
Because I'm just reading through the Ron Johnson's statement, and he's fine with it.
Christy and I read through that as well and saw that. Sounds like Christy vaguely remembers a conversation with Ron that they likely may have been okay with it just because of the configuration and the available access, but we could verify all of that with the final plat if the preliminary plat and annexation were approved.
Thank you.
I guess my only concern with that comment, I want to make sure that we adhere to our code. Just because one person says they're okay, if our code is such that it should be 29 units, then it should be 29 units.
And Mayor, so the fire code does give the fire marshal some latitude to provide some exceptions in cases that have, different circumstances. And so ultimately, they would need an exception from the fire department to do that or comply. And it would be ultimately their decision on whether they felt it was met the intent of the code and was safe.
Thank you. Any comments from Rodney, Christie?
Mayor, my recollection of our conversation with Ron was that it doesn't appear that they have any other options. If they could come up with another one, that would be great, but if they can't, one extra unit isn't going to hurt anything. And that he was fine with it. He has reviewed it as per his comment letter, and he did not have an issue with it when he looked at it.
Okay.
He would have said something in his comment letter if he wanted them to decrease it to 29 units.
Go ahead, go on, Mike. Thank you.
Just for clarity, Mayor, approval of this plat wouldn't be against or breaking any of our codes, even if there were that requirement for 30 spaces to have a secondary access. That's a fire district code. It's not a city code that would require that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay. So any further discussion and/or what is the will of the council?
Mayor, I'll just mention, I think this is actually a good plan. I like the two-car garages. I like an infill enclave. I think it's too much density and the amenities are not there. So I think it needs to drop in density and add some amenities for kids and so on that I'm not seeing there. So otherwise, I would be in favor of it.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I just want to say really quickly, I agree with that. I definitely am not in favor of the 30. If we could drop it down, and the amenities as well aren't there for me, but infill is always a good thing, as we want to protect our ag land, and we need that. And so I'm not opposed to the project. I just want to see some adjustments made before I'm willing to approve it.
So with that, I know we've closed our public hearing and there isn't an opportunity. What do we do with that if there were a motion to reduce the number of units and to add the amenities?
Mayor, you would have to deny the project and recommend some kind of a remedy, and then they can bring it back through the process again.
Well, does it have to be denied? Because then they have to go through it all over again. We can't increase, but if you reduce, I thought we had the opportunity to reduce density. You can't increase density, but if you're keeping with the same, can you reduce density? Todd, thank you.
Mayor, it's not really a hard and fast rule. If it was a slight, deviation reduction, then maybe you're okay. But if we're talking about a substantial change to the application, redesign, reduction in density, more open space, Christie's on the right track. So, maybe if you approve 29 instead of 30 or something like that, that that might be okay. But don't know exactly what we're talking about, and if it's substantial, then it's probably better to go back.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, that's the reason I asked Becky that question, was with how it was going to pencil out as far as, I guess I'll just pop something out there. I'm looking more like 20 rather than 29, rather than 30 units, but that's just I'm not necessarily saying that's what I would vote on, but I feel like there needs to be less density. So I want them to make money on this. I don't want them to not be able to do something.
And provide the amenities.
Yeah.
For young families.
So is there, I mean, is what, Todd, what I'm, sorry, Mary, what I personally am hearing is that it just needs to be denied unless it's a real minor adjustment?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Bruner, if you're looking at a reduction essentially of 10%, that's probably substantial plus open space. So probably better to give them some guidance than say, we'll approve 20 units.
So 10%, we're talking about then, 27 units. Okay.
I don't know exactly if that pencils for them or not, and
then I guess that's what I was hoping to find out, what was going to pencil for them, and then add some amenities, so.
Makeling, usually in these situations, we always ask to come back and give them opportunity. So,
Well, she did.
well, do we continue the hearing again, or what?
If we need a response, we can reopen public hearing, and if that is the will of the council, we can reopen public hearing to provide the applicant an opportunity to respond to the comments.
I'm thinking about that.
Okay?
And she says yes.
Okay, council? Is that okay, Todd?
yeah, Madam Mayor, that
Okay.
essentially is, you have another question, you're not looking at necessarily new testimony or evidence, it's a response to a question.
Okay, I'd stand for a motion to reopen public hearing.
So I'll move. Second.
Does it have to be a roll call? It does, doesn't, no?
I think you're okay without a roll call. It doesn't
Okay.
involve finances or an ordinance or anything.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. As we reopen the public hearing, I think I would like to ask our applicant to come forward and provide response to the council's desire for you to reduce density and provide more open space for amenities.
Do I need to state my name again?
No. It's the applicant. Thank you.
All right, yep, so as far as the amenities goes, what is the council thinking as far as amenities? Because we do meet the 15% open space, and we are providing a pergola and a picnic table for residents. So I guess I'm asking for some guidance.
Yeah. Mayor, this is a family, so kids.
Sure.
So kids don't do a lot I'm being a little sarcastic here, Becky, I'm sorry, but
I gotcha.
that's kind of known for that. Don't do a lot on the picnic table. Okay, so, whether there be a play area for them, as far as we've talked, I've heard, I'm not so concerned about the dog park, but as far as an area where people could walk their dogs, take their dogs. And,
Okay. Yep,
so-
we could provide a play structure of some sort, or a dog park, a mini dog park for sure. Those are definitely reasonable options, absolutely.
And density.
And then, yes, as far as density goes, so we can decrease by, I guess, what you said, 10%?
Well, that's what our attorney said, which would be down to 27. You want to negotiate?
Well, so I'm not entirely sure.
It's 25?
I'm not entirely sure how.
Todd's gonna give me an idea.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Brennan, I used that number because that's what you were looking at. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
I
10% is
understand.
okay.
She was asking who was, I was mentioning, she said that. Yeah.
We would like to keep it as high as possible, but also compromise. So if we could do, 27 was thrown out, that would work. And it would create more open space.
question for legal. I don't understand why we would have to come back through the entire public hearing process if we're just reducing the density. So if that were the motion, are we saying that if that's the case, would we have to go ahead and go through the entire process again, or?
Madam Mayor, if the motion was to move it to 27, is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
That I don't think is substantial in my mind. That, I guess, would require some revision to the preliminary plat, certainly. So I don't know that I'm not saying you need to send it back with 27.
I think what I'm hearing from the intent of the council is to reduce some of the buildings, instead of 30, possibly in the 27 range, and use that open space for amenities for the population base that you're anticipating having, which is families.
Sure.
So that children have a place to actually play. And so to create those amenities in that open space.
So Mayor, do we have to go in detail what those amenities are, or is that something that we just, suggestions, or what, Todd? I guess what I'm.
Well, you do a development agreement.
So we can do a DA on it?
Reduced by 10%, do we know how much?
I mean, it's 20, what is it, 26 lots or something, 26? Times 3.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Bruner, as I visit a little bit more with staff, again, you could approve the 27. I think they would need to bring back provide a revised preliminary plat showing those number of units and the open space in the remainder. And then you probably want to be a little specific on what kind of amenities you're talking about too, as far as a condition of approval.
Does that have to go through public hearing? Or is that just no, it doesn't, because it's just a preliminary plat approval? Revised preliminary plat approval, okay.
Mayor, if you just put it in as a condition of approval that they provide a revised preliminary plat with the number of units at 27, and then lay out what amenities you're looking for, I can put that into the approval letter as a condition of approval, and then before they submit their final plat, they would need to give me a revised preliminary plat that meets those things.
Okay, perfect. So one of the things that I'm wondering is you would be looking for contiguous open space with the reduction of those 3.
I don't want it just, here and.
You don't want just a little.
Sure.
You want contiguous space that is a large enough area to provide a tot lot? I don't know.
Tot lot, okay, let's go
Playground
tot
area.
lot, playground for the kids, and then a dog, small dog area.
Possibly. Mhm.
And it would be nice
No
too if
cats.
it was broken up maybe somewhere more in the middle section so that it can be more accessible for people that live on those ends.
That'd be nice, that's a nice idea.
It's a good idea.
So Mayor, I have a question for Todd. So by us reducing to 26, 27, 27, we're still in high density. That's still an issue with me.
You don't have to.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Rodriguez, that's okay. Doesn't mean you have to vote for it.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Okay, I'll make the go
Mayor,
ahead.
sorry, can I?
Oh, we need to
Oh,
close,
that's
don't
true.
we? Thank you.
Any further
Thank you.
questions? Thank you for the catch.
It's after
Any
9
further
o'clock,
questions?
so.
Becky, do you have any further comments?
I do not.
You do not? Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Stand for a motion to close public hearing again?
Move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilman Bruner.
Okay, not real happy with it, but I will make the motion that we change as far as the number of units to 27. With the DA or conditions of approval that we add I move to approve the annexation of zoning to RML subdivision, primary plat approval for Wilson Landing at 0 Wilson Lane for Becky Azagar. I'm sorry, I didn't pronounce it right there. And with all conditions listed in the staff report, and adopt the approvals as stated in the staff report with the adoption of not 30 units, but 27 units. And that this open area would be more in the center of the development with a tot lot, plus the picnic area and a dog area. And any other amenities that the staff so sees.
Second. Can I get a clarification? Your motion is that the 27 lots would be the same size as they are now, so the area that's given is specifically to green space then,
Yes, and it's contiguous.
not to make the
It's all
lots
together.
bigger.
That's
And I'm suggesting that it be more, as Councilwoman so suggested, be more in the center of the development rather than on an end.
The tot lot area, instead of it being contiguous with the other.
Right.
That, well, this does not replace the current open space.
No.
All
It's
it does is
added to it.
it pulls 3 units out, and those are contiguous open space for the tot lot and play area.
However they want to locate them.
Yeah, and as Councilwoman Tangula suggested, that it be centrally located. Is that clear?
That's good.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, is that correct? Is there any question with the motion? Any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
No.
Chingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
No.
Hammerfield.
Oh, we can't get the mayor to break the tie. Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
3 in favor, 2 opposed, motion carries.
Okay, that one's done. All righty, we are moving on to 8.4 on the agenda. This is an action item, and this is a Nampa City Code text amendment to change Title 2, Chapter 18, Title 10, Planning and Zoning, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Chapter 5, Chapter 6, Chapter 7, Chapter 8, Chapter 10, Chapter 11, Chapter 12, Chapter 13, Chapter 15, Chapter 16, Chapter 19, Chapter 20, Chapter 22, Chapter 23, Chapter 24, Chapter 25, Chapter 26, Chapter 27, Chapter 31, Chapter 33, and Chapter 34. Details to follow. Thank you, Christy.
Mayor, could you read all of the in-between there?
I just appreciate the clerk molding it.
Can we mark the time when legal got funny?
Yeah.
9:12.
There you go.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Any questions?
That was good.
Don't move it close public hearing.
Hopefully you've all read it.
Yes.
There are only a couple of things that I really want to draw your attention to. So if you don't have any specific questions for me, something that stood out at you, something you need some clarification on, I do have just a couple of things that I wanted you to know. We did add the 15-foot setback for primary structures, but not for accessory structures in all residential zones per the workshop that we had with you. Text was removed from these chapters describing the setbacks, and it was replaced by tables to make it easier to reference. So I don't know if you noticed that. Hopefully you like that easy reference guide.
So that setback is from the rear, from the side? What lot?
It's from the rear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a rear setback. Thank you.
Correct. And then the other one was some sign language. So right now we have 3 or 4 different places in our sign language that talks about variances and the ability to apply for a variance. It doesn't give any specifics as far as what we would be reviewing the variance against, because we have Chapter 4 for that purpose. But it does say in there a few different times, these are the code requirements unless you get a variance. Planning and zoning recommended taking out that option as far as like highlighting the fact that people had the opportunity to ask for a variance, and just if they ask for it, they go to Chapter 24 and we go through that process. But not advertise the fact that it's available to them just because they maybe don't want to follow the code. I don't know if you guys read Cliff's letter that he attached in there. He does not agree with the change. We put some language in there that said that anything that's within 500 feet of I-84 could potentially be 70 feet tall for the freestanding signs because you guys have granted a number of variances that have allowed signs to go up to that height. The most recent one was the Fargo station on Franklin Road, which was about 500 feet from I-84. So in an effort to kind of reduce the number of variance requests based on past history of variances that you've approved, we thought we could put this language in here so that it would just give them a buffer zone around I-84 where they'd be allowed to go taller if they wanted to. Cliff's letter indicates that that maybe isn't appropriate if we are interested in preserving our skyline and not have it cluttered with signs. Planning and zoning didn't have an issue with it. They didn't want us to change that language, but they did want us to take out the variance language. So their recommendation was to keep what we had written, but take out the variance language. So that's something that I don't know if you guys agree with that or agree with Cliff. If you want me to do something different, we can take it out completely and have a whole different sign workshop where we talk about this in depth.
It's a really good question. One of the concerns that I have, when we do this many changes all at one time, it's hard to catch them all. And it's hard to make wise decisions because there is so much being brought forth at one time for us to consider. It might not be a bad idea to take the sign piece out and come back and have a workshop around signs. I personally feel like our signs across the city, we haven't had a good sign ordinance in place, that we have signs all over the place. And there are places that we've allowed signs we never should have allowed, the kind of sign there that we allowed. I know other communities have a much stricter, or appear to have a much stricter sign ordinance than we do. But I don't know, I appreciate Cliff's comments. But I would leave that up to council. What do you think?
Mayor? I think it would be good to maybe revisit this and also in light with the landscape ordinances as well, because we've been seeing trees in front of signs and that conflict discussed in prior sessions too. So maybe we can combine that effort and looking at both at the same time.
I think that probably is a good idea. So what would we be taking out of here? Is it the chapter?
Chapter 23, removing chapter 23 from this decision.
Okay. Thank you. So at this time, that's the recommendation that we're hearing is take chapter 23 as it relates to signs and landscaping around that and not have it in the motion to approve this.
Yeah, so, we do have a lot of landscape plan changes here, but really don't have anything to do with that. So I'm not going to do anything with the landscape chapter, like take it out right now. We're going to go ahead and go forward with because that all came out of the drought tolerance committee, and so we need to get those changes put in place. But we will include that in the workshop so that we at least, make changes going forward. Our next set of changes would be in 6 months, so next March.
Okay.
So that'll give us enough time to have this workshop and get those changes written.
Thank you.
Question. So Christie, when it says add tree canopy shading parking lot coverage requirements, I've been involved with this in Ada County before where at maturity, a tree will cast so much shade. Is that what this is all about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's within a certain number of years, the tree canopy has to be so big.
So we have to calculate how much shade is going to be created, whatever. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's why landscape architects make all the money that they
Yeah. That's another reason to have to hire them.
Okay. Do you have more items for attention?
No, that was it.
That's it?
Yeah, everything, so from chapter 5 to chapter 20, the changes are all the same. We did a little bit of purpose statement revision to kind of clean up some language, and then we added the tables for the setbacks for easy reference. But otherwise, they're all the same. The changes are the same. So I don't know that there's really a lot to discuss. It sounds like a lot, but it really isn't that much.
Okay. I have to say, it's nice to get the setback addressed. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's great.
More excuses.
And thank you for the attempt on the signs, but we'll come back and revisit that.
Okay, that sounds good.
If that's what council would like to do. Am I seeing yes? Okay. Okay, are there questions for Christie on this? Okay, this is a public hearing, so I guess, Christie, we'll have you come back
Okay.
after. All right, okay,
Madam Mayor, there is no one signed up for this item.
okay. So is there anyone here that would like to testify? There's only a couple people in the room. I don't see anyone raising their hand that had intended to testify on this issue. Okay, seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Mayor Kling, I'll make a motion to approve the code amendments as listed in our packet with the exception of those related to Chapter 23, which will hold out of this approval process to have for a council workshop, a date to be determined.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brenner.
Yes.
Pingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, so we do not have any unfinished business this evening, but we do have an executive session. So I would stand for a motion. I think I need to double check, and I don't see Rick in here. Doug, do we need item J? I don't believe we do, which is labor contract matters. Okay. So, you know what, we'll just go ahead. I would stand for a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061 A, F, and J, just in case we need it. And it's to consider hiring an employee, public officer or employee, to communicate with legal counsel for a public agency to discuss legal ramifications and to consider labor contract matters authorized under Section 742061A, 1A, and B of Idaho Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Rodriguez. Yes. Brenner.
Yes.
Pingula.